The Greater Manchester Mayor's hinted at challenging Sir Keir Starmer if he's selected for and wins the Makerfield by-election. What do voters there make of his chances?
Definitely happy to vote for Andy Burnham. I've always thought it was what I was for, but you've got our vote.
You're going to be someone who's not going to be here, so it won't be his priority. I think that's what people are thinking.
Andy Burnham seems to be a fantastic candidate. We really hope he wins.
The constituency largely voted for Brexit. Potential Burnham rival Wes Streeting already said he's likely to rejoin the EU. Donald Trump's warned Iran is cracking as talks to end the conflict stall. The US president's told reporters in Tehran will have a very bad time if no deal is agreed. Working reports Washington and Israel are stepping up preparations for renewed strikes. The World Health Organization has declared a global health emergency over Ebola.
Patients that had been exposed to patients that are quite suspected of Ebola in the different areas, and they've been working on the clock to try to respond to this in the location where we are and in other locations as well.
It seems East Ayrshire is the most affordable location in the UK for first-time buyers. Bank of Scotland have found the average price of a property in the area is just over £147,000. West Ham have edged closer to Premier League relegation after a 3-1 defeat at Newcastle. A point for Spurs at Chelsea tomorrow is likely to be enough to send them down. And Aaron Ryan has become the first Englishman to win golf's US PGA Championship since 1919. He finished 3 shots clear of the rest of the pack, with Rory McIlroy ending 5th for the pace. That's the latest. I'm Marnie Barner.
On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk. No nonsense news for the nation. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show.
Well, a very, very good morning. The sun is out, the sky is blue, and we are going to be carefree. Well, almost carefree. A very good morning. Welcome to Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense, the home of the alarm clock. Bridge has gone 6 o'clock. Don't know what you're doing, presumably, like me. A hard-working alarm clock Brit. Whatever you're doing, we want to hear from you this morning. On the way to work, on the way back from the night shift, trying to cajole the house to get moving, you're queuing up for the bathroom, whatever. Get in nice and early. As ever, Tom is here. You can have your call on 0344 499 1000, but those voice notes, who's going to win the award? Get your first voice note in today. Same number, 0344 499 1000, and your text to 87222. Now, I just thought, I don't want people to think that I'm cynical, because we have really been, you know, masterminding a campaign of let's get Keir Starmer out of 10 Downing Street, because he's not very good. That seems to have happened. It all kicked off last week. But, of course, the new sheriff in town, or I think he'd like to be the new sheriff in town, although he's going to pick which town he's sheriff in, is Andy Burnham, who it seems, ladies and gentlemen, is already in trouble. The problem is that his rather astute colleague slash fellow candidate, Wes Streeting, who stuck his head above the parapet last week and resigned as health secretary, sort of let off a bit of a bomb at the weekend by saying, you know, I think we should rejoin the EU. As does Andy Burnham, by the way, which is slightly worrying for Burnham, because the constituency in Manchester, Makerfield, voted, well, 63% and voted to leave in the Brexit referendum, which means that Reform are crowing right now, because they're saying, well, we're just gonna walk around saying this man believes in doing something that you didn't want, plus he's going to parachute himself in, right? Is he actually going to be a constituency MP, or is he just using you to get on? Now, other people are very supportive. Lots of papers talking about backlash over Brexit betrayal. And what's really interesting is that over the weekend, Burnham insisted, I will be campaigning on local issues. It's time for change. I'm not saying anything about the EU. But we've got a clip, haven't we? It was only last September. Oh, Andy, we've got the clip, Mr. Burnham. Have a listen, peeps.
Long term, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to say it. I want to rejoin I hope in my lifetime I see this country rejoin the European Union. I'm absolutely clear about that. I believe in unions of all kinds. The union that is the UK, the European Union benefited this country. Trade unions, people prosper more when they're part of unions of countries or whatever. That's my belief, so I'm going to say it clearly.
Countries prosper more if you're part of a union. Andy Burnham, who believes he can win Makerfield, get to Westminster and be our Prime Minister despite the fact that nobody's voted for him. So that was him saying last year he wanted to rejoin, and over the weekend, flip-flop time!
Are you in favour of rejoining the European Union?
I've said in the long term there is a case for that, but I'm not advocating that in this by-election. In fact, what I am saying is focus now domestically. Britain has got to focus very much on the here and now and the issues that are affecting people.
At the risk of anybody who's listening to this programme thinking I'm being cynical, the reason that it's important that we do this is because when you in politics say one thing and it's on record, it comes back to bite you on the backside. So, Burnham, the question is this. Are you using Makerfield just to get into Parliament and don't care about local issues? Do you want to rejoin the EU or not? Or are you just pretending to pull the wool over people's eyes? I think we have a right to know, don't we? 0344 499 1000. He's also being slaughtered this morning. He's been dubbed Air Miles Andy. No comparisons meant. The Manchester's man of the people enjoyed 9 globe-trotting joints, or even, I can't even say that, globe-trotting jaunts. Did I say joints? 35 grand or 53 grand. All going on this morning, and who better to share it with than a man who puts the alarm in Alarm Clock Britain when his goes off and he's not pretending to be sick. Charlie Rowley, good morning, love.
Well, if the cars appear as well, which that could have been the issue this morning.
Why?
Getting into the car. I think the driver cancelled this morning, but coming to the rescue was Christian and the team to make sure that we're all here alive and well to take on this story that's going to dominate the next 6 weeks, I'd imagine.
So here's what I want to ask from you. You've done this before. Andy Burnham sort of said, I said this last week, the self-styled King of the North, the man of the people, seems to be the person that Labour is fixated on, right? Let's firstly talk about the constituency of Makerfield. I know it very well, right? 63%. I spent 15 years of my life in Manchester. 63% of that constituency voted to leave the European Union / in the local elections, there were 11 or 12 wards, I think, Reform, pro-Brexit, they've been very honest about that, won every single seat. This isn't a shoo-in that he and his commie mates would like to think, is it?
No, and I think if there was an alternative seat that Andy Burnham could have, got somebody else to resign from, if he could have convinced another Labour MP in the area to stand down, he probably would have had his eyes on that one. But, Makerfield, he's tried to say, oh, I've got family connections there. He might have grown up there at some point, having obviously left that
You mean he played in a playground there? He didn't get brought up there at all. But sorry to jump in, the other thing that I didn't realise and remembered from last week was that the incumbent MP, Josh Simons, who's apparently done the magnanimous thing for the right of the country, he was sacked 6 weeks ago for being part of a think tank group, Labour Together, that put Starmer in but got accused of spying on journalists or some dodgy thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not entirely sure what because the Labour Together group is, or
there was some controversy. He was a Starmer fan who was then sent to the back benches. So you ask yourself, hold on a minute, what about the people of Makerfield? And let me just say, I've not got any skin in this game. Whatever they decide, they decide. But there are a lot of people suddenly going, sorry, mate, hold on a minute. You're talking about being Prime Minister, you're not even an MP. You're going to come to our constituency because you think it's a shoo-in, and you're actually pretending that you don't advocate something that the majority of us disagree with.
And that's exactly the point there. It's what do the people of Makerfield deserve? Who do they want as and should have as a representative? Because they voted for Brexit over a decade ago, or coming up to a decade ago. That vote, that EU referendum took place 2016. You know, so the by-election will be around about the same time, if it is on the 18th of June.
They reckon it's going to be the 18th of June.
Which will be almost 10 years after the actual referendum voting to leave the EU. And these people voted to leave for many different reasons, but the majority, I would argue, like many people in the country, voted to leave because they could see that Westminster wasn't working for them. These are communities that have felt for far too long that they've been left behind, that too much money, too many powers went to Brussels, having a say over the lives of the people of Makerfield and all over the country without the actual democratic scrutiny, being able to hold the government and Westminster to account, but without getting the money and the investment and the opportunities that the people of Makerfield deserve. And the two clips that you've just played should be, it doesn't just have to be reforms. I mean, obviously reform, I'm sure, will go with that because it's the obvious one for them because they've been pro-Brexit more than most. But any opposition party can just play those two clips of Andy Burnham and say, do you really believe this man has your best interests at heart? I think that's a big question for the people of Makerfield to make.
Bill and Romsey, good morning, gang. When are the likes of Josh Simmons MP and Andy Burnham, Mayor of Manchester, realise that they are there to serve the people, not the people are there to serve their own interests? Burnham is only interested in being the Prime Minister. He's using that constituency guy. Burnham talks of the changes he wants to make as a PM, but he's not even a bloody MP yet. Sean's in Gloucester. I'm still absolutely convinced that Keith Starling will call an election out of spite now that he's being challenged, especially if he thinks he won't win. If he does win the leadership challenge, he will be even more deranged and dangerous. I have to say, Sean, he cannot win I don't believe he can win the leadership campaign. I saw Harry Cole last night on Sky. I think he is, for want of a much better phrase, a dead man walking. He has no power. It's not when. It's when, it's not if, and that's the way they're coming in already. 0344 499 1000. Andy, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. It's Andy from Birmingham. Just come back from 10 lovely days in Lanzarote, not paid by the taxpayer like Mr. Burnham. But, oh my God, I'm off down the motorway down to your place, round out Windsor today, so... But you think to yourself, something might have changed by the time I come back, but obviously it's an absolute Labour show, if you don't mind. I can't say the word. How long do we have to put up with this? This government isn't working, it's stagnant. Oh, God. What we're going to do, mate. Anyway, have a great day. Ta-ra.
Thanks, pal. 0344 499 1000. Those are for your voice notes or your calls. Here's the interesting thing. So it's all you were a special advisor, and it's all about optics, right? So Andy Burnham yesterday, and I'm going to play this, says he's standing on a call for change ticket, failing to back Starmer. That's not difficult. Watch this.
Straight question. Do you have confidence in Keir Starmer as Prime Minister?
I've always worked with him, and I do have, confidence in him as a person, and actually
him as Prime Minister. Do you have confidence in him as Prime Minister?
What he has done. I think the thing I would say is some of the good things the government has done has not, come through in terms of, people's awareness of the big changes, rail renationalisation.
And why is that, do you think?
I don't know. It's a hard thing, isn't it, being in politics, getting your message over. Perhaps it's the sense that there isn't a really clear forward story for Britain and where it's going, and that I think is what we've got to really kind of pull forward now.
Do you want Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, to come and campaign with you?
I want the support of any Labour colleague in the country if they want, if they're on board. With
Will he be inviting you up to help you campaign?
Let me put it this way. I mean, it's not a traditional by-election campaign. I'm saying different things to a degree in terms of what the government has been saying. If people are glad that I'm breaking this open and want to come and join the campaign, then, but I'm not saying everybody must come and join the campaign, because it is a different campaign.
So you're not standing on Keir Starmer's record, and therefore it'd be kind of odd for him to come and campaign with you?
Well, I'm standing on a call for change, aren't I? I think we need to change Labour to some degree so we can change politics, change the country.
Charlie, this is me at my most serious for a minute, and I'm not... Some people listening to this don't like my opinions. I hadn't seen that. I don't know. That's not very impressive. Well, growing up, politicians were quite good at talking. That's not... Sorry, I haven't watched that and gone, geez, there's a man in waiting. And he can't say no, I don't want Starmer there, although everybody else said it was a toxic brand, everybody in the local elections. But more than that, that man wants to be our next Prime Minister. This reinforces, in my humble opinion, how utterly lacking in quality so many of our politicians are nowadays. It's not impressive at all.
No, and I think, look, you're absolutely right. If this was someone that did politics better, as we're led to believe that Burnham is a lot better at doing politics than what Keir Starmer has been, you would have thought he would have had a team of people to go through some of those kinds of questions. We are absolutely... That interview highlights the problem that he faces, where he's actually saying, yes, some people can come if they want to, if they believe in the change, because it's not a normal by-election. Brackets, I'm trying to unseat the Prime Minister that currently leads the Labour Party.
And by the way, you haven't been selected as the candidate yet for Makerfield.
Absolutely. You know, so the audacity and the arrogance to sort of suggest that he's going to become the candidate without going through that process is one thing. But we're now in a situation where it's very easy, and this is where campaigns really have to... It doesn't matter at times what the campaign is that you're trying to achieve, but the messaging, that campaign to me now screams as though he's going to go to the people of Makerfield to say, vote Labour to unseat a Labour Prime Minister, vote Labour to change Labour. You know,
I'd definitely, all joking apart, I would have you in my corner if I was doing this, because it doesn't make any sense. Basically, the messaging immediately, because of Wes Streeting, who's been accused of Burnham retreats on push to rejoin the EU. Wes Streeting has been accused of, you know, look at this. Backlash over Brexit betrayal. Gove blast Streeting and Burnham in Mail articles. Kemi says Labour clowns couldn't negotiate with the EU. What's really interesting is by Streeting putting that in the public domain, because as it stands, Burnham would win if you look at that poll over. This is amongst Labour voters. He's now on the back foot and he can go now. See, at that moment in that interview, and this is a really interesting one from Anne, she says, I have to say, Jeremy, that neither Burnham or Streeting are showing any signs of intelligence. She said, basically, you come out and you go, well, I'll tell you what's wrong when I'm calling for change. We shouldn't have taken away pensioners' £300 winter payment. We should target the boats. We should do something about illegal immigration. We should encourage growth and make business work. But all he says is, well, I'm calling for change in campaign. Where I'm not having a go. I don't want my country on its backside. I don't have any confidence in hardly any of them right now. But that did not in any way inspire me to go, oh, right, listen, Labour are going to... And I hate to sit here, I mean, dithering rubbishy old Starmer. Is that an upgrade? Is that an upgrade in your mind? It doesn't look like it, does it?
It doesn't look like it. I mean, he's done more interviews. He's had more, you would have thought, media time to get the messaging right. But he clearly is on the back foot. I think where's probably Andy probably thought that this was going to be a lot easier.
A shoo-in.
A shoo-in. And he's obviously now going to come under immense scrutiny, rightly so, because as he says...
Of course he's going to come under scrutiny.
The one thing...
Because he wants to be Prime Minister without the electorate having a say in it.
Exactly. And so the one thing he did get right in that interview is that this is not a normal by-election.
No, it's not.
Because it is about basically coming in to unseat the Prime Minister, to become the leader of the Labour Party.
I want your Labour vote to destroy the person that you voted for because you're so frustrated. Forget the fact that I disagree with what 63% of you voted for in the last election. We must talk about the Tories in a sec. Boz, good morning.
Morning, JK and fellow workers. Travelling Boz here. Do you know what? It's taken ages. And I can't believe I'm saying this. By the looks of it, I think Comrade Starmer, we're better off keeping him there because he's just a lame duck anyway. These two are coming in, especially, you know, the, what's he called? The King of the North. He's already saying what he's going to do with his mate old Streeting there, what their plans are. And once again, it's against the public opinion. The public have said they don't want closer ties with Europe. And they've already, these two cowboys are already saying what they're going to do. Oh, man, it's a nightmare.
Brilliant. Well done. Sorry, I wasn't... But therein lies the Labour problem. And if you step back from it and you think, you know, when Starmer was starting to talk about forging closer links, we all knew that that was to placate a certain part of his party. I said it repeatedly, that the whole thing about his premiership has been, I'm trying to please this person by that person, robbing Peter Paper, whatever it is. Burnham already is stuck in the mire because he can't come out and say what he genuinely believes, no conviction. I'm going to say what I need to say to get elected. Let me just bring you on to this. This is really interesting because when we talk about make a feel, we have to talk about who's going to stand, right? This is from Bill. He said, I reckon Reform's candidate should be that bloke who stood last time, a good local candidate. Then it would be Burnham, that is the unwanted guy who's been parachuted in for his own selfish reasons. It shows no respect for voters. Stay above it, go local. And whatever the outcome, Reform can take the moral high ground and exploit what I believe to be Labour's cynical approach. Let's talk about Jacob Rees-Mogg. Over the weekend, he broke cover and said that the Tory party should step aside for Reform so that this is a straight fight between the right and the left. Thoughts on that, Bud?
I would agree.
It's not going to happen.
And no, it's not going to happen. I mean, Kemi Badenoch's already said that, you know, she wants to have a Tory candidate on the ballot. She thinks that everybody who is entitled and wants to vote Conservative should be able to do so. And she's trying to, at an opportunity, which is a by-election, I think demonstrate the differences that the Tory party still has with Reform, whether it's about the two-child benefit cap or any other policies. That's what she will be willing to put forward. And that is understandable. And I sympathise with that because I do actually think that people should have an opportunity to vote for a whole range of candidates at any given time. But the politics of this is so different. This is not a normal by-election. Kemi said in the weekend interviews that the local elections, people vote differently for different reasons.
You weren't very impressed with her weekend publicity, were you?
I think just like those clips of Burnham, where he was very comfortable saying what he actually thought at a Labour Party conference, saying that he wants to rejoin the EU, compared to now I'm thinking, oh, right, I'm on the national stage, I've got to say what I actually feel as though I need to say just to get through. I think Kemi Badenoch could have been a bit more open again with the reflection of the losses the Conservatives still had at the local elections, accepting clearly there is more work to do for the Tories in Suffolk, in Essex, in Norfolk, in places that they couldn't hold, that they lost significantly to Reform. Not spending time on a by-election in Makerfield, where the Tories have never come anywhere near, where they're going to spend money, time, effort, a campaign, when actually this is a by-election about parachuting a man from Manchester, the Mayor of Manchester, into a inverted commas safe seat, because it's obviously not safe, to become Prime Minister of this country, to do untold damage to this country. It's in my political body and bones and blood to stop that from happening. And if we can do that, it's not about doing a deal with Reform. You know, it's not about picking up the phone to Nigel and saying, you know what, Nigel, I'm going to give you a free run here. It's about seeing it on your own, as clear as day, that actually, if we do actually take votes away from people that might want to vote for another centre-right party, a party that came second last time round, a party that can do better than what we can, you know what? I'm just not going to have the conversation. We're just not going to field anybody because we don't want to play ball in this Labour psychodrama. So let Reform have a free run, because if it is the case that Burnham actually ends up winning by, let's say, a Sarah Poachin margin by 6 votes, and I know the Tories fielded a candidate in Runcorn and Hillsby, but the stakes are so much higher in this by-election, as everybody has acknowledged and recognised. So I would say don't field a candidate, don't play ball, let this psychodrama implode and be rewarded as a Tory for saying, as the Tory leader for saying, we didn't want to play ball in this situation. We were doing that. We'd taken the moral high ground here. We didn't think we were going to. We didn't want to get involved in this Labour circus, and we did the moral thing. And that's it.
During that speech, which was fantastic, Christian kept speaking. He said, "That's the most passionate he's ever seen you." It's not the most passionate I've ever seen. But he halfway through, but who the bloody hell's the presenter? I completely agree with everything you're saying. And this isn't us, by the way, Pete, being pro-reform, but it is absolutely a seminal moment. If this guy thinks he can walk into a constituency simply to take on the Prime Minister, and by the way, there's a whole debate afterwards, if he does manage this, there's a whole debate about should a government be, I mean, presumably, and this is really important, if he and Streeting are pro the EU rejoining it, that wasn't in the manifesto, so how can you have a mandate? The other thing, very quickly, is Rayner. Fascinating, this. Last week, of course, before we finished the show on Thursday, she'd been exonerated / let off by HMRC, or as she says, HMRC. Hate that. A few questions on that. But I've noticed how quiet she is, because here's the thing. I don't believe that she's lost any ambition. If Burnham doesn't win this seat and falls as flat as whatever, trust me, it will be Rayner, absolutely Rayner, who takes Burnham on. It's very exciting. Do you know what I'm going to try and do? Sorry, Christian, I'm going to announce it. I'm going to try and convince the bosses to send us to Makerfield for the day of the result. We'll do the show live from there, even if I have to pay for it. 0344 499 1000. Andy, good morning.
Morning, Jesse. Andy from Hull. Can you imagine yourself rocking up to the studio on a Monday morning and then deciding, no, I'm not going to go on air. We're all going to go in the back with the team and we're all going to argue about who's doing what job today and who's the best and who's the worst and who should be in charge and who shouldn't. You just decided you're not doing it today. But that's what the Labour Party are doing, isn't it, right now? They can't be doing anything constructive or productive while all this mellow psychodrama's going on. It's crazy. They need to just be out, get out. They just need to get out.
The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. Switched on morning radio on Talk.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Northbound due to an accident between the Little Ponton Junction and the A52 Tolmarsh Road North.
Across the UK, Talk on DAB+, Talk Money, on your smart speaker, culture, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:28. It's Monday morning. You would Talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of you, the alarm clock. Brit, JK till 10. Thanks for tuning in today. 0344 499 1000. There's only one story in town. I didn't really even understand when I came in how many layers. My sidekick, she's here, Lady Rowley. Morning, Richard.
Hi, good morning. It's Richard from Cornwall. I am absolutely furious with this party. The reason the Labour Party want to go back into the EU is because they've proved that they can't govern this country themselves. 2 years they've failed. They've made so many U-turns. It shows that you can't govern that way. Okay, the occasional U-turn is possible, but not, 16 times?
completely backed up by Rachel, who says rejoining the EU just is a win for Labour. It stops them having to make their own bloody decisions, and when something goes wrong, they can blame them. It might be a good thing because a lot of EU countries are now carving out mass deportation. Loads of people in the break saying, and I know the answer to this, that he should share this with you. There's so many layers to this story. Why so passionate?
Because...
I know why. Tell him. It's true. It's brilliant.
Yeah, because, look, I was there under the last, Tory government, not right towards the end, but the psychodrama that engulfed the Tory party, the plotting against, people, that anybody thinking that they could become Prime Minister, Team Rishi versus Team Boris, Team Rishi versus Liz Truss, people that were out to get Theresa May in the early days because they didn't like her version of Brexit. It became a self-indulgent exercise of people who were plotting constantly just to bring down the Prime Minister because it wasn't their version of what they wanted. There was no reflection about what the public actually wanted. And that's why the Tories lost. They got an absolute thumping in 2024, rightly so. That's why Starmer's in there in the first place. Not because it was a loveless landslide. No. It was because people wanted to get rid of all of that. It was a protest vote. And we're seeing it again. And it shouldn't be allowed to happen.
Completely agree.
There is just no way a man should just be able to come down the M6 or whatever it is from Manchester.
God, he sounds like he knows locally. Just go across M32, it'll be fine. Here's the thing from Dave and all. Morning, Jez and Charlie. I think the biggest threat to the Makerfield drama is Rupert Lowe and Restore. They're going to field a candidate which could split the Reform vote.
Absolutely. And I just think, look, people need to be slightly more humble, frankly, because it's not about you, dear, in inverted commas,
Oh, dear.
Rupert.
Me, dear, you, dear. You're talking about me, dear. Don't be so dear.
Exactly.
You, dear, me, dear. Yes, dear.
So the message is clear to, Kemi Badenoch and the Tory party. It's not about you, dear, OK?
Yes, dear.
Rupert, it's not about you. Just don't bother. Because no one will forgive you, I don't think.
This is about Reform versus Andy Burnham, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Morning, JK and Charlie. Burnham will do nothing for the people of Makerfield who are simply using them as a vehicle into number 10, says Keith in Lincolnshire. Now, I completely agree. Couple of scenarios. As Christian said this morning, there's so many layers to this, right? Here's something I bet none of you have thought about. I hadn't until the brilliance of Christian's mind opened this up. How ironic that the man we have criticised for 2 years because he has been the least popular Prime Minister in the history of British Prime Ministers, Keir Starmer, will secretly want Reform to win Makerfield, won't he?
He will.
He'll if he had a vote, he'd be voting for Reform.
Yes, yeah. Well, wow. Just put another twist on that. The question, obviously, that was put to Andy Burnham is, would you want the Prime Minister to come and campaign for you? Burnham couldn't quite answer that question because, secretly, he doesn't want...
so Starmer, turn up!
Starmer, turn up!
Reform, get Starmer and take him to Makerfield.
Exactly.
The other thing as well, this is all Christian, I'm taking no credit. In the Gorton and Denton by-election, the slogan was, vote Reform, get Starmer out.
Mm.
So what is Andy Burnham standing on? Vote Labour, get Starmer out.
Get Starmer out, yeah.
I mean, it's extraordinary.
It is. And
there are so many... Christian's right, there's so many layers to this.
Yeah.
So many layers.
And that's why I think, look, everybody was slightly...
Are you going to come with me if we go and do the show from there in the morning?
Well, if there's an invitation there, I'm sure I'll accept. I'll be delighted to, because it will be fascinating. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Morning, gentlemen. You would think that after 14 years in opposition, the Labour Party would have managed at least a half term with some credibility. Sadly, in less than 2 years, they've turned the UK into an absolute joke. How is going further to the left going to revive us when already 1 in 6 of anybody who's made anything has left for elsewhere? Which is a great point, Keith in Nottingham. Morning, Jez, and the wonderful Charlie. Tony in Sussex, obviously deranged. I tried to send you a photo of Hinge and Bracket, but to no avail. For a tribute to you both for being entertaining, informative and funny.
Oh, thank you very much.
If Hinge and Bracket were a couple of old dames in the 80s, they would, oh dear, you dear, me dear, no dear. What are you talking about, dear? They were really stroppy as well. You what? If they went, did they share a bed? I've no idea. It wouldn't be for me to say that sort of thing, but certainly if we go to Makerfield, there'll be none of that topping and towing lot, let me tell you. Separate. Morning, Jake, and Christian will be there as well. It'd be like the Berlin Wall.
3 in a bed and the little one said. Who's...
Let me just say one thing. I don't want you to say this the wrong way. If I was anywhere near you in bed, I wouldn't be rolling over. Cliff in Berkshire. I still can't understand why any politician who wants to run our country, when he gets that power, wants to give it away to the unelected EU SSR in Brussels. Agreed. I have to say, Jeremy, that neither Burnham or... Yes, absolutely, Angela, thank you. Gary and Brecon. Is it Brecon or Brecon.
Brecon Beacons.
Oh, lovely, is it? Happy Monday. Wonder what disasters are facing this week from this pathetic government. Morning to Joe in Salisbury. Hi, Joe. It's all a number 10 con of smoke and mirrors to keep everyone busy. The PM campaign is just a fictional plot to distract from Starmer's immediate call for resignation. It's going nowhere, this story, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, that first message about, policy and the idea of change. Look, Labour campaigned at the last general election for change. And we know that Starmer didn't have a plan. That's why, the polls have tanked. That's why he hasn't got any kind of direction or sense of direction and hasn't been able to change anything because he doesn't know what he stands for. You've now got someone that actually does have a bit of policy idea.
But he dared say it.
But now he can't even say it because he wants to rejoin the EU.
To me, this is interesting. Gove writing in the Mail today. Michael Gove, trying to get him on today. He'll be on later in the week. Whoever leads Labour will try to take us back into the EU, but thinking that's the solution to our problems is like believing dunking donuts will help you lose weight. You worked for Gove, didn't you?
I did, yes, yeah.
Also, Lisa Nandy hinting that Starmer may not take part in a future leadership battle. So let's talk about this, because over the weekend there were reports that said that he was preparing an orderly transition. The cynics amongst us all will go, see, if I was Keir Starmer now, I'd just throw a bomb straight in the middle of it and call an election, or just basically go up to Makerfield. I'd just cause trouble because I'd be so hacked off that I was so incapable. I don't want him anywhere near number 10, but I also, looking at Andy Burnham this morning, I'm not inspired. When I watched... I always say this, but I didn't have to agree with him, and I know he made lots of mistakes, but if you looked at Blair, there was something about him. Andy Burnham looks like he looks like he's sort of up for a game show appearance on a reality television show. Can I become the Prime Minister?
Yeah.
Nandy, Starmer, does he stand or what?
Well, look, if Burnham doesn't win this by-election, then it's blown open, because people are...
It's what?
It's blown open.
Oh,
in terms people are expecting him to win. Well, in that they certainly were in the Labour Party. I think they now woken up this morning and over the weekend thinking, oh my God, actually, this plan...
Be careful what you wish for.
Exactly, completely unravel. And I think if you are Starmer, first of all, I think you would go and campaign because everybody has just got to be very clear in their messaging now and just be upfront about it. Starmer would go, or should go, to Makerfield and say, I want the best players on the pitch. Andy could be a great player in my team. He wants change just as much as I do. We've worked very well together. We can continue to work well together. Right? That's the line, whether people will take it or not. But this, tiptoeing around whether, Burnham wants him to turn up or not, whether Starmer will turn up or not because he's a bit offended that Burnham actually just wants his job, doesn't matter. You turn up, you show up, you put on the show. What comes at the end of it, even if it's a Reform victory, which then, if it is a Reform victory, means that the Prime Minister, and I think a lot of people might think, right, well, we haven't got the King of the North who we thought was coming over the river. We've now got a choice between what could be Ange or Miliband on the far left. We don't want that. We don't want West Streeting that's blown this whole thing up in the first place. Better the devil you know.
Completely agree. And talking about Ange, I said this to you off air. I think this is really interesting. Apparently she was sounded out by number 10 about replacing West Streeting as health secretary. Yes, the vape-smoking, wicked drinking Angela Rayner, but made clear she wasn't interested. It's really interesting for me because although she got cleared, she's been quite quiet. I know Miliband has as well. Her ambition, everybody knows her ambition. She doesn't need to play her hand right now, because if Burnham gets in, I'm sure she'll get a role. If he doesn't win that by-election, right, she's the number one candidate, I would have thought, to take on the right and West Streeting, isn't she?
Yeah, absolutely.
So she's playing it as cool as she can.
Absolutely, yeah. There was no point taking a position, particularly as Health Secretary, which is quite important, and probably one that requires a bit more detail than maybe what Angela could be. She's a great communicator, but I wouldn't necessarily have her...
Are you saying she's lacking in detail?
I wouldn't have her, trotted out in the morning round to talk about, the numbers of, percentages of... cardiovascular, operations that might have taken place versus cancer treatments versus,
I can't see her getting that right.
Yes, yeah.
It was going well, and then I had a vape and a bit of brekkie, and I'll be back later.
No one play to your strengths, and I think she can be a great communicator for the Labour Party. She might have a better vision than Starmer, and she might have the opportunity to set that vision out, as you say, if Burnham falls short at this by-election.
Really interesting. Sam in Barnsley, you're not like Hinge and Brackett, more like Les Dawson and Roy Barakoff over the garden fence. Do you remember where they... Oh,
I'm still too young.
You're still... Can we get a picture of Hinge and Bracken up, please? Because I do want him to see that. Mark in Croydon says, Jez, to quote the great unwashed... Who's the great... What does that mean? Not my king, when in talking about this fool Burnham. There's a lot of people. Nathan in Perth. Oi, you two. You're not like Hinge and Bracken, more like Dame Edna and Madge. Right, hold on a minute. Madge with the badge. West Ham playing at the Valley next season. You can do one. I'm not talking about West Ham. So, Dame Edna. Do you know Dame Edna?
I do.
And do you remember Madge? She just stood at the side. Madge, where's the badge?
Yes. Yep.
I've got a feeling they think I'm Madge and you're Dame Edna. Certainly look better dressed than I've ever looked. I'm a Reform voter, but this time I don't care who gets Makerfield as long as it's not Burnham or the Green Party, says Peter. Well, I would presume you would hope it's Reform. John's in Scunthorpe. I agree with Charlie. The Tories should stand aside for the good of the country. However, I worry that Rupert Lowe is determined to split the vote with a Restore candidate just to get one over on Farage, and that could open the door to Burnham. Interesting. Pete says the EU would welcome us back with open arms because they are running out of money and have a worse economy than us. Do you think that Rupert Lowe would stand back or not? He says no. He can't win the seat.
If he says no, well, and I think two of those things could be true at the same time. He says he's not going to stand down a candidate, and I think he'll, unless he has a conversation with Nigel, which I'm not entirely sure what their relationship is like or whether they do talk.
That's not going to happen.
I think that's a non-starter. I think he will stand a candidate. I don't know how many votes would actually be detracted from Restore, but who knows? But I'm just going on the last results of that constituency where the Tories got about 4,000 votes.
Can I also add into the criticism of Andy Burnham? We've talked. There are so many levels. The excellent, wonderful, brilliant, fantastic Maggie Oliver said over the weekend that he failed to show leadership and courage when handling the grooming gang scandal. Maggie, who blew the whistle on the forces handling of a child sex abuse ring in Rochester, said Burnham had failed to grasp the nettle in relationship to the final part of the review. She said, actually, I watched it, we started it but didn't see it through. So the concern, I think, for people should be, and this is not me, this isn't even political, this is fact, this is about human beings. You look at him in that interview, you see he says things and you think, we're back there again. Is politics now always going to be like this? Hear me out. Are politics or politicians so governed by focus groups or what's being said online that they never want to say anything in case it causes them to be unpopular? Why don't we have politicians who go, this might well be unpopular, but this is what I believe, I'm going to do it. If you vote for me, we're going to do it, as I've said on many occasions, and I'll take you through it all, and I'll tell you every day the good, the bad and the ugly, and if you vote me out because it doesn't work, I'm gone. Why do people want to tread water for 5 years, not being true to themselves, simply to enjoy Westminster?
And that's the question why I think politics is now in a five-party system, because for too long you might have had two parties of people treading that kind of tightrope, where it's more PR rather than actual delivery and policy, more style than substance, wanting to win over people and focus groups and all the rest of it, rather than doing the hard yards, taking the tough decisions. But, campaigning is one thing, being in office and governing is very, very different. And, you're absolutely right. You've now got Jess Phillips, who was even coming out sort of over the weekend, criticising obviously the Prime Minister and sort of talking about, again, violence against women and girls. She's clearly a much better commentator than she was a politician, because she was the safeguarding minister that failed to have a national inquiry. One of the, I thought, decisions that could have been the most open goals.
Absolutely.
It was the easiest decision any minister would have had to make, but she failed to do it because she wanted to protect local leaders. She obviously spoke to Andy Burnham, who said, well, in Manchester we do it slightly differently. She didn't want to say, no, you've got it all wrong. We're having a national inquiry and getting on with the job.
Couldn't agree. He's on fire this morning. There's something to do with the curry he had last night. 18 minutes to 7. Hinge is here until 7. 0344 499 1000. Dan, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. It's Dan from Kent. So Andy Burnham's so passionate about the area in which he was brought up in, you'd think he'd stay and finish the job in which he was elected to do as mayor. But oh no, he wants to use Makersfield as a platform to springboard him back into Westminster, be the saviour of the Labour Party. But in reality, this government, unless it completely U-turns on policies like net zero, cutting back on welfare, not wanting to join the EU, we're going to be stuck with the same situation, a problem. What we need, in reality, is a general election. I'm sure we'll get it sooner than what we think. But Andy Burnham, you're not the saviour. Great show.
The University of Common Sense. This is Talk. across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Off the big welcome back, 7:15. We're live across the United Kingdom. Mr. Jeremy Kyle on Talk Breakfast. Thanks for tuning in, because when you do, it gives us so much more time to work out what's coming next. 0344 499 1000. Charlie Rowley is here, and we're joined now. This is fantastic. Sophie Ellsworth, News Cause Australia Europe correspondent. That's a nice old thing, mate, isn't it?
It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it, Jeremy?
What I love about Australians is they're actually far more direct than we are. And you, bless your heart, and this is delighted to have you in. You went to the... there were two marches in London on Saturday. There was the Unite March, uniting the UK, and all that was said about that was it's going to be far right, it's going to be dangerous, it's not going to be peaceful, these people are all thugs. And there was a Palestinian march as well?
Correct.
You were there. Less people, I believe, than were expected. Is that right?
That's right. They're saying there was far less people. But look, Jeremy, to me, the most important thing at these protests, no matter how many people, is talking to the punters on the ground. And that's what I did. I got out in the crowd and spoke to punters. And what they were telling me was what many ordinary Brits have to say, that they're concerned about issues in this country, such as illegal migration, cost of living, but the theme that just kept coming through was concerns about illegal migration. And these were just normal mums and dads from the burbs, from different parts of England, who had travelled to central London to be there because they're concerned about what's happening to Britain.
It's interesting, Starmer, he's back in the limelight. He thought it right and proper to do, Charlie, I know, Sophie, I'm talking about a video on Friday warning about this march, but only the Unite March. He didn't make mention of the Palestinian march.
Yeah, and this is on the back of weekend after weekend of pro-Palestinian marches, where I'm sure a lot of these people are just very pro-Palestinian state, and that's, you know, people want to do that on their Saturday afternoon, they're entitled to do that. But a lot of the people, weekend after weekend, are there, or a number of people are there, preaching hate, that are talking about, you know, from the river to the sea, that are clearly demonstrating anti-Semitic views. So, you know, that causes, at a time where there is anti-Semitism on the rise, when we've seen those attacks taking place, whether it's against ambulances, whether it's that stabbing of that chap the other day, whether it's attacks on synagogues, you know, that is the focus, that the government should be gripping anti-Semitism. And so you should be calling that out just as much as you are trying to warn people off about a particular protest, a one-off event that happens, I think, now once a year.
It's really interesting that we have a Prime Minister not for long, that it's always the one side. After the Southport riots, you know, it suited the rhetoric to say these are all far-right people, and suddenly we had 6,000 police on the streets, and suddenly you could arrest them and they could go through courts that were supposed to be full and be put in prison. And by the way, can I just say, I've absolutely no time for the far-right, but we should also talk about the far-left. We should talk about people talking about, you know, all the terrible, terrible things. You spoke to Holly Valance.
I did, Jeremy. I spoke to Holly.
I've interviewed her.
She's great.
She is good.
She's really interesting to talk to, particularly for our listeners and viewers back in Australia, because she's obviously Australian-born, has been in Britain decades now. She's probably more British than Australian, really. But she was there saying she's concerned about issues going on here, including illegal migration. She said some really interesting things, Jeremy. She said, don't be embarrassed to stand up for your country. Respect the culture. Respect the flag. Don't be embarrassed to fly the flag. And I wrote about this on the weekend. This story is run in Australia and it's got huge traction because she's speaking common sense and she's saying things like stand up for the views you believe in respectfully, but if you're not happy with the country you're in and if you're not originally from this country and it's not very good here, then jog on. And she was very polite about that, but I think she made some very important points that people can relate to.
Let's have a little clip. It's brilliant. Good job, by the way. Seriously, thank you so much. Just get this on. This was Sophie Ellsworth interviewing Holly Valance on Saturday at the march.
Do you have any message for Australia, given what is going on with Britain with this pushback against perhaps a left movement?
I would say don't be embarrassed and don't be too scared to stand up for your country, the place that you love that's given you everything, it's given you your freedom, it's given you the great life that you have. Respect it, respect the culture, respect the flag, don't be embarrassed to fly the flag, be patriotic, stand in that, and don't let anybody tell you that you're a racist for doing so. It's disgusting and treacherous and treasonous that they would. I think it's hilarious that right-wing's supposed to be an insult. I'm absolutely right wing. Call me far right, all right. It's not an insult anymore. It's hilarious that anyone would think it is. It just goes to show how wet the nation's become. I think everything in life is about balance, and when the balance is off, things start feeling quite out of kilter. And the balance is off right now in terms of two-tier policing. There's obviously an issue with illegal immigration. I think there's probably an issue with legal immigration as well, to an extent. If you're not here to love and respect the culture, why are you here? Why would you want to be here? Stay wherever you've come from if it's so fabulous. There's no problem with that.
Do you think Nigel Farage will win the next election?
I think Nigel's got an incredible chance. I think he's got great foresight. He's super strong. He's just done super well in the elections. I think he'll probably be the next PM, quite confidently.
Sophie, the thing about, people might not know this, she was in a relationship with, I think, Nick Candy, who's the treasurer of Reform. But taking that aside, that as an honest spirit, I had a discussion with somebody at the weekend, both of you, right? And this bloke was saying, where do you stand? And we were talking about it, and I was just saying, listen, for me, it's really, really simple. There's nothing far right in saying, in this country right now, people struggle to pay their bills, right? They're struggling. And if you pay your taxes and live your life correctly and try and do everything as we're told we should do it, and you see people cynically being allowed to break into this country, and I'm not apologising for that, to simply take advantage of benefits that you're not getting despite the fact that you paid for them, right? That is wrong. That is not far right. I've met so many people who say the same to me, which is, I don't have any problem with anybody. The guy that drives me, Ben, it's from Hong Kong, he said to me, he's raging about illegal marriage because he came to this country, learnt the language, embraced everything, brought up his family, set up a business, pays taxes, and he rants at me every single morning more than I do. And I think it is an absolute disgrace that anybody who can't have that debate labels anybody on the right as far right, a fascist, a racist. It doesn't wash anymore. That march proved it doesn't wash anymore, doesn't it?
I think really, Jeremy, people just wanted to get the point across. There was one man, I'll give an example. He was a father of 4.
Yep.
He lives in Essex. He's caring for his son. 2 of his sons have issues, autism, ADHD, and he was saying, I need help because I'm a stay-at-home carer.
Yeah.
And he said, but it's impossible to get a house. It's really hard to get a job. And he felt like the forces were against him. And I thought he was a good example of a dad he said, I want my kids to grow up in the Britain that I grew up in.
But also, the fact that listen, it's different from Australia, but the fact that he's saying, we have a system in this country, which I love, and I'm happy to pay as much tax as possible to help people who can't help themselves. But when that's laughed at, and people are being helped and given more, and they've not paid a penny, and they only come here to take... That didn't... Australia's a great example. When... I can't even remember his name now. I had him on the... Tony Abbott did it, didn't he? Mm-hmm. You're not coming in, that famous boat, and everybody went in the world and went, oh, this is outrageous. And that policy that worked is still used by the Labour government under Albanese because the Australian Premier went, no, I'm sorry, Australians need to come first.
Well, obviously Australia is different because we're a big country. We're in the middle of nowhere and there's a lot of water around us, so we can stop... we can stop the illegal boats, and we did stop.
Well, we have water around us, and we can't stop them.
But the issue seems to be here that it's not desired to want to stop them. I mean, you would know this better than me.
Will.
There's no will, and we often talk about in the UK what Australia did successfully, and this is why in Australia we're seeing the rise of Pauline Hanson, like Nigel Farage, where there's an alternative to the 2 major parties speaking about issues that people care about.
I completely agree, and there's a big squeak in this studio, but that's fair enough. Charlie, your experience in politics, these labels, right? I've just laid out what I think. There isn't a racist bone in my body. But if you're going to tell me that you can come to this country, throw your passport over the side, not bring in your wife and kids because you don't care if they're being bombed, come up with some feeble excuse under the ECHR to stay even if we prove you shouldn't be here, that's taking that out of the British people who graft it. Alarm clock Brits, isn't it? Sophie's right.
Absolutely. And it's not far right to talk about immigration.
No,
it's not far right to talk about any of these issues.
No.
It's just about fairness.
Great word.
That is the other.
Great
that
word.
is the F word that we should be using.
Yeah.
That it's just about fairness.
He's got it all this morning. The F word, fairness. You're right.
And that's what it is. Because, of course, if people who do need to use and access the benefit system, that's what it's there for. It's a security blanket for people that actually need it.
And I love that. I love that about this country, right?
That's a great thing. But you can't have people endlessly sort of, stroll into the country who are then put up, bed and breakfast, food and drink, mobile phones, doctor's
Credit
appointments,
card.
dental appointments, all the rest of it, when there are people, veterans in this country who are sleeping rough. That is not fair. That is not right.
Just in terms of your vibe from that day, we saw a great interview there with Holly Valance. Did you see anything that scared you in the Unite March?
No, I didn't.
Did you see anything on the Palestine march?
I didn't go to the Palestine march, but Jeremy, I was walking through the crowd with ease. And sometimes you can go to these protests and they can be quite testy and you can be a bit nervous, especially being a member of the media. But everyone I approached was very respectful. There was lots of police and security around. As we know, they deployed facial recognition technology at this march. But I thought that it was very calm and I didn't see anything. Perhaps I missed something, but I certainly
There were some arrests, we should make that point.
Yes.
But it is interesting for me that Starmer only talked about that march. And I repeat, and I think we would all agree with this, there are far-right factions and there are far-left factions. None of those factions, in my right mind, have a place at the table. But you are, I've said this for a long time, Sophie, the silent majority have woken up in this country and found their voice, and they're not going to accept politicians in future simply say, you're all far right, you're all far right, you're all... It isn't. I'm so glad we got you in, because that guy about, I've got 4 kids too, have autism, and I'm on my own and I want some help. I'm happy to work 24 hours a day to pay tax for him to get help, but I am not prepared to work all day to pay tax for somebody to come to this country illegally and laugh in my face.
Well, I thought that was a good example, Jeremy. And just other people there saying, why are illegal migrants, immigrants able to come into this country so easily and they feel like they're getting something for nothing.
Yeah,
and they're not contributing, because I know obviously I'm not British, and to get here
kidding me now,
I've had to contribute to the economy, work and pay taxes, and that's what anyone who comes to any country should do, is contribute.
But there is, of course, I haven't got much time, but there is, of course, the one big question is, why would anybody from Australia want to come to England? The weather's better, everything's greater. What the hell are you doing? Sophie, thank you. Sophie Ellsworth, News Corps Europe correspondent. We love you. Thank you so much indeed. Rhoda, you can't go.
Well,
I'm holding you over.
Oh, are you? Well,
yes. News at 7 and more from Charlie Roddy and Simon Danshuk on Breakfast on Talk next.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning. Welcome along or welcome back. It's just gone 7 o'clock Monday. What is it? 18th of May. The sun is up, the sky is blue, and we're having a great time. If you want to be part of the Common Sense Revolution, 0344 499 1000. Tom is taking your calls. We want your voice notes. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. What's the main news story? There's only one news story. Andy Burnham, the man, the self-anointed. I'm the king of the north. I'm coming for you, Starmer. I'm going to be your Prime Minister, seems to already be in trouble because Wes Streeting, who last week resigned as Health Secretary and has made no secret of his leadership ambitions, has basically said, I think we should in fact, I'm telling you now, if I'm elected, we're going to rejoin the EU. To which Burnham's gone, I'm not too sure about that, which is very interesting because the constituency Makerfield, which is going to stand, in the Brexit referendum, 63% of Makerfield, right, went, no, not an accent, we're leaving. Pro-leave. So that's one problem for Burnham. And, of course, the other problem is that the people are just saying, so you're just going to come to our constituency, right, and just parachute in and get... You don't give a toss about us. You just want to be Prime Minister. Anyway, let's go back to the EU, because last September, our Andy was quite sure we should rejoin the EU, weren't you, Andy?
long term, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to say it. I want to rejoin. I hope in my lifetime I see this country rejoin the European Union. I'm absolutely clear about that. I believe in unions of all kinds. The union that is the UK, the European Union benefited this country. Trade unions, people prosper more when they're part of unions of countries or whatever. That's my belief, so I'm going to say it clearly.
Charlie Rudd is still with me. That was September. But then when Wes Streeting said, I think we have to leave the EU because Wes doesn't need to win Makerfield, but of course Burnham does to be able to come to Westminster and become Prime Minister. He sort of flip-flopped at the weekend. Seeing any sort of similarities between him and Stalin, are you? This was him at the weekend.
Are you in favour of rejoining the European Union?
I've said in the long term there is a case for that, but I'm not advocating that in this by-election. In fact, what I am saying is focus now domestically. Britain has got to focus very much on the here and now and the issues that are affecting people.
Lady Rowley, we are joined by the legend that is Simon Danshee, former Labour MP and now Reform man. Simon, he's already in the mire, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in a mess, no doubt about it, Jeremy. Look at that answer to his question there by Burnham. Yes, I think we should join the European Union, but I'm not going to discuss it in this by-election. I mean, he's taking the people of Makerfield for granted. He's taking them for fools, isn't he? You can't play people like that. And, you know, the residents of Makerfield are smart enough and sophisticated enough to see through Andy Burnham. I think they'll give him a bloody nose. They won't be happy about issues like this. Yeah, I really do.
Charlie, you think this is I mean, this is not, by the way, can I just say, this isn't some sort of sabotage job. We try and report stuff. I've made no secret of the fact that I think that Keir Starmer was out of his depth with no plan, and just 2 years after an unbelievable majority has been found out, right? And as Harry Cole said last night, I was watching Harry Cole last night, he just said he's only there in name now. He can't do anything because his backbenchers control. But there's two things. It's one, the sheer audacity to think you could just walk into a constituency and use that as a step. Are you going to represent the people of Makerfield? But this EU thing's massive, isn't it?
Absolutely. And look, you know, let's stick to the facts if people want to have a pop, because Andy Burnham very clearly said in that clip, let me be honest, I want to rejoin the EU in my lifetime. You know, he believes in all kinds of unions, whether it's the Union of the United Kingdom or the European Union. He said, let me be honest. Well, that was honest Andy then. And then the second clip that you showed was him obfuscating, obviously knowing that the constituency that he's about to be parachuted into to represent the country as Prime Minister, as he sees it, not the people of Makerfield. He doesn't care about Makerfield. He doesn't care about the bins,
I love
the
this.
potholes,
my children have been in the area. Well, they went to a park there or something. Yeah, my kids have been in Manchester as well.
He's doing it to become Prime Minister. He's asking the people of Makerfield to say, elect me so I can just spend my time in Westminster and run the country
but also,
rather than the constituency.
And I agree, and all jump in, whatever, but Simon, Charlie made a great point in the first hour, right, which is he's basic. I mean, I don't know if he was asked in an interview, I won't bore you all now, but he was asked in an interview, do you want Starmer to come and campaign? And he went, well, anybody's welcome to come and campaign. But hold on a second, you're standing and asking Labour voters who voted Starmer to vote for you to get rid of Starmer.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we also know from the weekend papers, the Mail on Sunday ran a big piece saying that Starmer's effectively decided to go on his own terms. He's going to announce that he's going to depart, probably by September conference time. So there's no justification for voting for Burnham in Makerfield. And the bigger point there is, you know, Burnham's been saying, oh, well, yeah, I have strong connections to Makerfield. I'd love to be the Member of Parliament for Makerfield. He's been asking anybody and everybody to give the seat up right across the northwest. He doesn't care about Makerfield. He would have come back through any seat that had a chance of him winning.
Well, let's also make the point. Is it Josh Simmons or Josh Simons? What is it, Simons or Simmons?
Simons, I think.
Right, hold on a second. He was one of, we were saying this last time, he was one of Starmer's main fans. I think he was, there's a sort of think tank, Labour Together. They're under investigation for spying on journalists, which is quite ironic, and he was thrown out 6 weeks ago. So he's got a chip, a bit of, I don't know, chip on his shoulder, whatever. But the whole thing is really fascinating. I mean, listen to this, you two. This is brilliant. Morning, Jez. if it's correct that Starmer has said he will stand down, and you just pointed this out, it's only because of one or two things. Either he knows Burnham hasn't got a cat in hell's chance of winning, or he's hoping that Reform throw everything at it and Burnham loses. So then you've got this whole scenario. You defected to Reform. Last time Reform said, in Gorton and Denton, a vote for Reform, Starmer out. Now Andy Burnham's going to Makerfield and saying a vote for Labour is Starmer out. Reform have just got to keep the EU line, haven't they?
Yeah, they do. They certainly do. I think that's a strong line on which they can campaign. And the only hesitancy from Starmer, and he's in a dilemma, isn't he? If he announces now that he's going to depart and then Burnham loses, that means Starmer could have had a chance of staying on. And if he delays his departure announcement, Starmer, until after Burnham wins the election, then it looks like he's being pushed out by Burnham. So Starmer's in a very difficult position. And as you pointed out, he's losing authority by the day. Starmer is yesterday's man. Nobody's even prepared to join his cabinet now. Angela Rayner's just decided to reject the offer of going in there as health secretary.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Totally. Look, and Simon's absolutely right. You know, it's hard to see how the Prime Minister can even recover, you know, in terms of... But he could still be. There is a narrow path, as we used to say in the Tory party when it comes to the last general election. You know, there is a narrow path in which you can see if Burnham loses this by-election, then it's up to Wes and Angela to trigger that leadership. Does Wes have the numbers?
Well, there's the thing. Front page of the Times, Burnham's allies. It's brilliant. This is so good for this show. Burnham's allies accuse Streeting of sabotage. Now, we don't know whether Wes Streeting had the numbers or not. He played a blinder by resigning and then saying, I want a broad church, so that nobody on the left could say you're anti-Burnham. I don't think he beats Burnham, but I think his chances, and I think this is really important, I think he's just after a big job, is that Burnham doesn't win. He's brought up the EU thing. The one that I not worry about, Si, she's gone all quiet, hasn't she, the vaping, wicked, drinking woman who doesn't want to be the health secretary? Because here's the thing, if Burnham loses, the darling of the unions will be the left candidate, won't she?
Yeah, absolutely right there. They are fighting like rats in a sack, and it's pretty unprecedented for Labour. I mean, the Conservatives are familiar with changing leader, but Labour aren't, so it's all relatively new. But you can see what's happening. When Wes Streeting resigned on Thursday, what did Angela Rayner do? She came out saying, oh, I've been cleared by HMRC. She was trying to douse down Streeting's resignation letter.
Yeah.
She was trying to take the agenda off Streeting. So they are literally fighting each other in front of our very eyes. And it's unedifying, I have to say. And it's no way to do government, because the bigger picture is the country is failing, the economy is failing, with more illegal immigrants coming into the country all the time, whilst Labour slug it out as to who should be Prime Minister.
And Charlie was quite passionate, which we don't see very often because he's getting to that age, but he was really angry in the first hour, and you explained that as a Tory special advisor, and you get this, Si, you will just tell him, you were saying, weren't you, this is everything we were accused of, and now they're doing the same.
Exactly. Look, you know, the chopping and changing, Simon's absolutely right. The Tory party was able to get rid of its leader quite quickly, and arguably wrongly too quickly in some cases. But, you know, Labour haven't been able to do this. They don't know how to do this. It's clearly a bit, you know, bureaucratic and dodgy. But, you know, the whole point of getting rid of the Tories to get Labour in was to get rid of that chopping and changing, that political uncertainty of the past. But we've got, you know, and governments need to provide direction. The Tory party lost its way when it came to taxes and immigration. And this is what's really crucial about this whole saga, is because you've now got Wes Streeting and Rachel Reeves has said it in the past, Sadiq Khan has said, and the Prime Minister said that they want closer ties with the EU. Sadiq Khan and Rachel Reeves, I think, have gone further to say they want to rejoin the EU, as is Wes Streeting. Now, Andy Burnham has been on the record saying he wants that too. Now, but is campaigning in this by-election for change. Well, what kind of change is the Labour Party going to deliver? Absolutely. Is it going to be the change for the communities, like Makerfield for the Better, outside of the EU, where more money goes into that community, where more opportunity goes to that community? Or is it taking the people back into the EU? This is a really legitimate and, you know, should be asked question time and time again of Burnham, and let's see how that goes.
I must say to both, I want to play this to you, because I wasn't going to, but this was him yesterday being grilled. I don't know the guy's name from ITV, whoever he is, he did a fantastic job. If you watched this and you were an MP, I want to hear what you think, because I watched this and there wasn't any part of me that thought, yeah, there's a leader. This is Burnham, and all he's calling for is change. No details. Have a watch, have a listen.
straight question, do you have confidence in Keir Starmer as Prime Minister?
I've always worked with him, and I do have confidence in him as a person, and actually
But him as Prime Minister, do you have confidence in him as Prime Minister?
What he has done. I think the thing I would say is some of the good things the government has done has not, come through in terms of, people's awareness of the big changes, rail renationalisation.
And why is that, do you think?
I don't know. It's a hard thing, isn't it, being in politics, getting your message over. Perhaps it's the sense that there isn't a really clear forward story for Britain and where it's going, and that I think is what we've got to really kind of pull forward now.
Do you want Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, to come and campaign with you?
I want the support of any Labour colleague in the country if they want, if they're on board with.
Will he be inviting you up to help you campaign?
Let me put it this way. I mean, it's not a traditional by-election campaign. I'm saying different things to a degree in terms of what the government has been saying. If people are glad that I'm breaking this open and want to come and join the campaign, then but I'm not saying everybody must come and join the campaign, because it is a different campaign.
So you're not standing on Keir Starmer's record, and therefore it'd be kind of odd for him to come and campaign with you?
Well, I'm standing on a call for change, aren't I? I think we need to change Labour to some degree so we can change politics, change the country.
Simon Danshuk, I read this, and I've said this to Charlie already. I picked out a couple of lines. Apart from, and I'm being honest to both of you, the sort of sighing and the lack of detail, which amazes me, because I thought, you're coming for Starmer. This is not a traditional campaign, he said 3 times. No, you're simply using Makerfield to try and unseat the Prime Minister. What are you saying, Andy Burnham? No detail, Si, at all.
Andy Burnham is so uninspiring, isn't he? I mean, he's come forward, he's put himself forward to try and be an MP again and then become Prime Minister, and yet his agenda, as we've just seen in that interview with ITV, is just exceptionally poor. Voting for Burnham to be an MP and then Prime Minister is just getting more of the same. He's just like Keir Starmer. Burnham is Mr. Flip-Flop. He offers nothing new, nothing radical, nothing that's going to challenge this country to improve, no vision. I mean, why we would have him replace Starmer is beyond me.
It's quite interesting, both of you, actually, because I would have thought that if you've got balls, and I'm not a... Listen, I'm not for or against West Streeting, but I'll tell you something, he put his head above the parapet, whatever the critics say, and he's put the EU front and centre because he believes in it. Let's talk about Andy Burnham. He's put nothing in detail there. He's basically saying, I'm going to stand in this constituency to get rid of Starmer, but I haven't got the balls to say I don't want Starmer up here campaigning, Charlie. It's much of the... I think Simon's right, it's just the same, isn't it?
Look, and this is why, I mean, we talked about earlier on about just being upfront about it, so Starmer saying, if he goes in campaigns, we talked about that. Burnham should just be upfront about it. He should say to the people of Makerfield, yes, I am standing in this constituency because I want to lead the Labour Party. I want to save the Labour Party. You are hard-working, traditional Labour voters. You should be voting Labour if I can convince you to do so, because we've lost our way in the past.
Maybe I can do it nationally.
Maybe I can do it nationally. Yeah. So vote for me, vote for Burnham.
Vote for change.
Vote for change, but the real change that hard-working, working-class Labour voters have traditionally voted for, that should be getting that service where they failed in the past. I can do it for you, I can do it for Labour again. He should just be open and honest about it. But this flim-flam of an interview with Dan Hewlett, if that's the word, where he clearly doesn't know how to appeal to people, because he's worried obviously about the West Streeting.
But we have an example, do we not, guys, both of you, where we've got another politician who can't put any meat on the bone because they're absolutely petrified, or rather paralysed, by having to try and placate 47 segments of a party, Simon. Isn't that the point here?
Yeah, it's exactly right. And Streeting has thrown a spanner in the works with this EU membership issue. And Burnham has been found wanting, hasn't he? And I'll tell you that the politician who's really been affected by it is Lisa Nandy, because she's a Wigan MP and she knows how this plays out in that local area, because she represents Wigan, and she's panicking over Streeting's intervention because she knows it'll affect her pal Burnham.
It's really, really interesting. Let me just bring it on very quickly, so I haven't got all the time in the world. The Tories, Jacob Rees-Mogg over the weekend saying the Tories should step aside. Rupert Lowe has said no, Restore are running a candidate. There are people contacting us saying this is going to split the vote on the right. I have to say, Charlie wasn't that impressed with Kemi Badenoch over the weekend, that she seemed to be making excuses about the local elections. He thinks... Well, you think she should stand aside a candidate, don't you?
Yes, I do, yeah. I don't think the Tories should field a candidate in this by-election.
Simon, thoughts?
No, I think they should stand a candidate. I think the electorate in Makerfield are smart enough to know how they should vote in this election. They need to vote Reform to get rid of Labour, no doubt about it.
Here's the interesting thing. Have I said this already? It's age. You know, did I say about the last campaign? You voted, in Gorton and Denton. I said it, haven't I already? You voted Reform to get rid of Starmer. Now you're voting Burnham to get rid of Starmer as well. Starmer's in an enviable position, though, isn't he? I mean, some people have said it's difficult for him, but he must be the only sitting Labour Prime Minister who'd actually want the insurgent Reform Party to win.
Yeah, I mean, he's a wily character. I've been mildly impressed by Starmer in the last couple of weeks. He's managing to survive. Who knows what's going to happen next? I don't think he should be Prime Minister, but credit to him for hanging on as long as he has done.
That's interesting. Sean, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby here. Seen a lot of Andy Burnham on the TV at the weekend, being interviewed or all sorts of stuff. But they need to ask him the one question that skewers every single Labour politician, and that is, can a woman have a penis? His head will start to discombobulate, he'll start shaking, he won't know what to say or what to do, and he'll just show how pathetic he is, just like the rest of them, because they're too scared to answer this question. Great show, Jeremy.
It's quite interesting when people, and I play that for a reason, and I think Burnham should be very careful here. You cannot take the British public anymore for mugs. The silent majority have woken up. Your word, the F word, fairness, is so important. Can you imagine, Andy? I've told you before, I sat in the studio with Piers Morgan. He asked Keir Starmer 9 times, can a woman have a penis? And the bloke went white and couldn't even answer it. Why can't a Labour politician answer that question, Charlie?
Because I think much of the Labour Party, much like the left, is governed by groupthink, campaign organisations, people that shout the loudest, and therefore they worry about offending people rather than getting the right decision and the big calls right.
Conviction. And I thought, just to finish, if you watched or you read all the kerfuffle, about Andy Burnham, you'd have thought this man was going to stride out. I thought this. I don't know who Andy Burnham is from toast to do now. I thought he was going to be on interview saying this is what needs to be done. Bang, bang, bang. They are failing British working people. Bang, bang. No. Well, politics is hard, isn't it? It hasn't even started yet, AB. Quick question for you, Si. How'd you see it going in that constituency?
I think it's going to be tight. I think Reform's really fighting for it. I think it'll be on a knife edge in terms of the outcome. So I wouldn't even call it at this stage. I'm going to go up in the next couple of weeks and do some campaigning and get a proper feel for what it's like out there. But it's going to be a tough one on both sides.
Interesting. We are planning to do a show, I haven't spoken to the bosses yet, from Makerfield on that day. You've got a caravan. It'll be a cheap gig. We might have to stay in your caravan. All right, Dan Shook, is that all right?
Goodbye, mate.
Good man. Thank you very much indeed. Simon Danshuk, legend, ex-Labour MP, of course, in Rochdale now, Reform defecting. And Charlie Roddy, what can I say? I don't like it when you go. It feels like my left arm's cut off.
Oh, well, I'll be back.
When will you be back?
Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday.
I'm not here on Wednesday this week, so you're going to come in on Thursday. All right? Lovely. Lady Rhodey, Hinterbracker, thank you very much indeed. 7:22. We're live across the UK. This is Talk Breakfast. Thanks for tuning in. If you do want to be part of the debate, 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Next, the legend that is Peter Blexley, as we talk about those marches at the weekend, the Unite March and also the Palestinian March. Blexley, next on Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, I love this job. 7:25 Monday morning. Thanks for tuning in. Alarm clock Brits 0344 400 1000. Text to 87222. Jez, I reckon Starmer's premiership is now resembling a divorced husband who won't leave. He's sleeping on the sofa while his ex-wife's upstairs having sex with a new boyfriend. Gary Phillis. Morning, Jez. Reformers pitch a well-known local figure in this election. If it's all about dirty tactics, pretty sure that Burnham has plenty of skeletons in the cupboard, which will resonate with the good people of Makerfield. Listen, he says that Burnham is dire and he is surprised. We're just quite surprised, having seen stuff over the weekend, that Burnham doesn't seem to have either a plan or anything to say about how he would change Britain. Russ is in Bedford. Jez, if Burnham and his people can't come up with a line or a lie on the doorstep about how he can improve local issues from number 10, then we already know that he's the wrong person. Paul, who's seen the light and is in Spain, says Burnham's saying we need to focus on the here and now. Does he want to tell Starmer that, just out of interest? Because that's full of negotiations, or either, what was it? Contradictions. Jez, Andy wants to go back into the EU, says Linda in Stalybridge, because his wife is Dutch, and that way he'll get to go through the E-gates. I've no idea. Just a thought, says Andy in Dudley. Lenny Henry, Dudley. If we go back to the EU... Very good point. I'm going to out you, Christian. Just a thought, if we go back to the EU, says Andy from Dudley, we might have a chance to win the Eurovision Song Contest. I don't know about anybody, genuinely know anybody that watched the Eurovision Song Contest. Anybody watched the... Christian and his wife sat down and had a family evening watching Eurovision. And he really enjoyed it, didn't you, Christian? He drank through it. It was a painful experience. By the way, just to say, one of the critics of Andy Burnham, Maggie Oliver, that amazing, you know Maggie, former detective constable who blew the whistle on the child abuse ring in Rochdale and was shunned by her colleagues. She's on at 8:45. She says that Burnham failed to grasp the nettle in relation to the final part of the review into that. Maggie's in London. Why do these two career politicians think they're trying to overturn a democratic vote? How dare they think they can just swan in and overturn what most of the country wanted? To say I'm angry is a complete bloody understatement. Keep the calls coming. The other thing I want to talk to you about is those marches at the weekend. We heard from Sophie Ellsworth, News Corps' European correspondent. She said, I went down to the Unite March. It was very peaceful. There was nothing far right about it. I enjoyed it. I think she said, I thought it was pretty ironic that the Prime Minister only released a statement on Friday about the Unite March, nothing about the Palestinian March. This is from Ellie, who says, I was a steward on Saturday, one in the high-vis jackets. I just want to publicly thank the police. They were brilliant and kept us safe all day with a smile on their faces. Can you please say thank you to them on behalf of all the stewards? Here's a man who says and talks all things police, former Met Police detective, legend of the stage and screen, Peter Bletchley. Good morning.
Good morning.
Go on, give it to me about West Ham and then we'll crack on.
No, that's fine. You've still got 2 games to go in which to save yourself, so we'll wait and see. This time next week we'll have a conversation, perhaps.
Unite the Kingdom March. Much was made. They talk Tommy Robinson. They talk far right. I don't have a position on that. I don't agree with far right or far left. But it struck me as rather ironic or rather sad that our Prime Minister on Friday only released a statement talking about how it was worrying about the Unite March and didn't mention the hate marches, the Palestinian hate marches, that seem to be on our streets on a weekly basis, Pete.
In many ways, I'm going to echo the words of Ellie, the steward, that you read out just before I came on. I positioned myself at Charing Cross early Saturday evening, so I met a lot of people coming away from the march, and they all said to me how excellent the police officers had been. They were well-natured, good-spirited, jovial and appropriate, and they had nothing but praise for the Metropolitan Police, and I just want to echo that. Well done to the Met Police, and very well done to everybody who went on the march, almost everybody, because in the face of Starmer's provocation, and he was very provocative on the Friday and in the lead up to this, they did not take the bait because they were decent people going to express their thoughts and concerns. Starmer was absolutely appalling.
Well, I'm going to play this clip because there is real consternation, not that we should be used to that with Starmer. Joke. This was him on Friday. As I say, just all about the Unite the Kingdom march from Starmer. Nothing about the Palestinian hate march. Have a watch, have a listen.
My government will not stand in the way of peaceful protest, but we will act decisively against hatred. We will use the full force of the law when that hatred manifests as violence. And we will ban those coming into the UK who seek to stir it up, as we have done already. Because this country belongs to all of us. And I will not tolerate anyone who seeks to stand in the way of that.
So is shouting from the river to the sea and death to Jews not hatred?
It most certainly is. But what Starmer proved in that clip,
is,
yeah,
he was clapping the clap, yeah.
In that clap trap,
Yeah.
What he actually proved is that Larry the cat is not the only pussy that lives in 10 Downing Street. It was absolutely appalling, and it was just deliberately provocative.
Yeah.
And Starmer, I've heard so many commentators saying, well, he's appealing to his party. That's what he's saying, because he's trying to save his own skin. But he was deeply provocative, deeply insulting, and because what he said irritates so many millions of people, that's why he's heading for the door.
I couldn't agree more. And also in that clip, did you see him say, we want to ban hatred. We don't want any of that on our streets. Well, we've already said you didn't say anything about the Palestinian march. And we're going to ban those sorts of people from coming in the UK. Well, the numbers of people that have come into the UK since he became Prime Minister is ridiculous. We've now had more people coming in his time than we've got in our armed forces, all 3 or 4 of them. So that's claptrap. I mean, he's a busted flush, as we know. But the unfairness, and I'm glad you supported the police. I think they did a great job from what I saw. And I get, as I said at the beginning, you know, people will say they're far right, but nobody in the mainstream media, nobody in politics will talk about those other marches. Why? Why, when the country, Pete, are all using the F word, fairness, and saying, I'm not racist, I'm not bigoted, I'm not far right, I just want... You know, I live my life correctly, I pay my taxes, I do what's right, and this movement, this hatred, this everything, right, is against everything I believe in. My voice should be heard. Starmer and his lot and the mainstream press ignore these people to their peril, I would suggest.
Absolutely. And Starmer has not roundly condemned these marches. They've gone on frequently, week after week after week, with the genocidal chants, the hatred towards Jews being spewed out onto the streets of London, and very little has been done about it. But, you see, there is a price to all of this. Starmer is paying the price because he is going to lose his prime ministership. That's the price he's paid. He has alienated millions upon millions of people. Many, of course, I suspect, will have voted for him at the last general election by calling them far right thugs, hate-filled people, and they're not. They're decent, hard-working, alarm clock Britain, talk audience, grafting people who take great exception to being smeared as something they're not by the Prime Minister. And that is why he is very soon going to lose his job.
If you've been listening or watching this morning, what comes next is even more frightening, because we have this self-appointed king of the north who thinks he can waltz Andy Burnham into Makerfield, this constituency. He can't talk about anything local. He's been outed at the weekend for being somebody who wants to leave the EU. And I was crying out when he was doing his speech, give me something that will change. Tell me the police will have more powers. We'll do something about stabbings. We'll do something about crime. We'll do something about the fact that you can walk into something on camera and nick 200 quid and no bugger does anything. But nothing, just they stick up, it seems to me, and I could be wrong and I'll probably get into trouble, they stick up for seemingly anybody who doesn't have this country's best interests at heart, make excuses for them, and all the while, and you are dead right, ignoring hard grafting people who just want a bit of fairness and a fair crack of the whip, and Judgment Day comes to that. And I don't know whether these Labour politicians are thick, disinterested, power crazy. There is no way on God's green earth, whether it's Andy Burnham or the Lord God himself, that they will win in 3 years, because they've completely, as the Tories did, they've alienated good, normal, hard-working Brits, Pete, haven't they?
They certainly have, and Starmer is responsible for so much of that. Now, I'm delighted that I will be listening at 8:45 when you have the legendary Maggie Oliver on your show. Quite simply, one of the most wonderful women we have in this nation. But before people listen to Maggie, if there's people in Makerfield listening and pondering about who they're going to vote for, I would just say this. Go onto the internet and put in 4 words, Operation Augusta, Andy Burnham, and then ask yourselves if you could ever vote for that man.
Good man, thank you. He's a legend. How's the tour going? You still out?
Yep, going to Ireland tomorrow. 5 dates in Ireland, can't wait.
Good man, he's a great, great man. Peter Blexley, thank you. 24 minutes to 8 o'clock. Yeah, Maggie Oliver, who's been quite critical of the, I'm going to say, would-be Labour candidate for Makerfield. He hasn't won it yet, Burnham, in terms of the election process. She says he failed to show leadership and courage when handling the grooming gang scandal. She said that he failed to grasp the nettle into the part of the last review. We'll hear from Maggie. She's an absolute legend. Damon, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Damon from Wigan. I am sick and tired of everybody saying Andy Burnham, king of the north, king of this, king of that. Andy Burnham has done nothing for Manchester. I live in Manchester and he is crap. He's not a leader. He doesn't know what he's doing. And a lot of people in Manchester cannot stand him. So why the hell do people keep saying, oh, he is the king of the north? He is not the king of the north. For me, he should not get anywhere near Prime Minister. I can't stand the fella, and it makes my blood boil, and I hope to death that Makerfield really make him suffer and say, no, I'm sorry, we're not voting for you, and he can go back to doing what he wants, out the way, keep out the way of everything, and just get him out of Manchester. Thank you, Jeremy.
Obviously, there'll be a whole host of candidates there. Restore are running a candidate. The Liberal Democrats, the Tories, despite talk about, you know, will you do a deal? Will you step aside? No, 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 no. Reform, the Labour Party. This is great. Andrew Scott in South Wales. Morning, Jez. Imagine applying for another job in front of millions of people, getting absolutely rejected, then walking back into your old office pretending nothing's happened. That's Andy Burnham's morning. The thing is, if he gives up the mayoralship of Manchester and he loses the seat, he's stuffed. Have you heard who they've been thinking about, the Labour Party? Gary Neville. Jeez, really? But there again, there's a problem. This isn't me being pro anybody. If you look at the local elections, Reform swept the board in Makerfield, and in terms of Manchester as well, did really well. Here's a man who's going to disagree with everything I say. He's going to say everything's brilliant. Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Look at the smile on his face. Poor Andy Burnham. No, poor Andy Burnham, my backside. I mean, my overriding view this weekend was, well, my friend, the view from the cheap seats has been fun. The lights are about to be shone on your head. Now, we know, and you know, that Wes Streeting, whether you agree with him or not, is a bit of a... he's a character, and he plays games and he knows what he's doing. When he resigned, I thought, well, you've put your head above the parapet. Over the weekend, of course, he's put rejoining the EU front and centre, which has put Andy Burnham in a really difficult position. How much time have you got?
Oh, as long as you want. The reality is...
Well, no, wait. This was Andy Burnham, peeps, in September, about the EU, last September. Watch this.
Long term, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to say it. I want to rejoin. I hope in my lifetime I see this country rejoin the European Union. I'm absolutely clear about that. I believe in unions of all kinds. The union that is the UK, the European Union benefited this country. Trade unions, people prosper more when they're part of unions of countries or whatever. That's my belief, so I'm going to say it clearly.
Matt Vickers, at the weekend, he flip-flopped, we know where that phrase came, and said it's not about rejoining the EU, it's about local issues and it's about change, but he couldn't put any meat on the bone.
Are you in favour of rejoining the European Union?
I've said in the long term there is a case for that, but I'm not advocating that in this by-election. In fact, what I am saying is focus now domestically. Britain has got to focus very much on the here and now and the issues that are affecting people.
Help me out, Matty Vickers.
Well, do you know what? The Labour Party has this obsession with rejoining the EU at the moment. They want to talk about it all the time because they want to blame leaving the EU for all of the country's problem, for the fact they have absolutely trashed our economy. It didn't happen by magic. The reality is that 17% more people are unemployed. That's real people out there.
Oh no. Oh no, Matt Vickers, frozen. Totally frozen, peeps. You try and get it back. I'll read some messages. Morning, Bert and Ernie. I think that might be me. Just leave him frozen. It looks great. Look at Matt Vickers there. Paralysis. Catatonic paralysis, George, look at him. No good. Morning, Bert and Ernie. Makerville, let's all have candidates submit to a lie detector test before the election. Let's find out just which one of them buggers is telling the truth. Something lacking in our politics today. How can they refuse to take part, says Mark in Selby. Zoe in Lancashire, we know exactly what Andy Burnham's up to, pretending to be caring in this area. He wants to take over, knowing full well he's after becoming Prime Minister. He will undoubtedly rejoin the EU if he gets in. More gaslighting, more lies. I've had an absolute enough of it. Good morning, Jez. We would have won the Eurovision Song Contest if we'd entered with the same song they sing about Starmer at the darts. Have a great and blessed day. Keir Starmer's a darts player. Roger from Wales, there's only one good thing about rejoining the EU, and that is that it will make it easier to leave this bloody country that Labour have ruined. Thank you very much indeed. Sharon in Staffordshire, good morning to you. Jez, will Starmer praise the Patriots for a peaceful march? I don't think so. Jez says, Chris Witt. Do you think Burnham should stand down as mayor first? He can't lose and then go back to being mayor of Manchester. He has to stand down as mayor. Have we got him back? What? You're joking. We haven't got Matt Vickers? I'm distraught. Matty, I'm so sorry. We played him 2 clips, asked for his answer, and then he gave up. I mean, that's not a great look, is it? Is it our fault or the Tories? I mean, we're not going to change breakfast presenters. We're not going to change the way. I bet you the Tories, as a result of what's just happened, might well change who's deputy chairman. I think there'll be a chaos meeting. Bless his heart. We'll have him on tomorrow. Not his fault, not ours. 0344 499 1000. We'll go back to that Unite/Palestinian dual march at the weekend. Samara Gill talks, breakfast reporter. Fantastic job. Was down there. She's next on breakfast. Don't go anywhere.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7:45. Apparently we have to take responsibility. The kit packed up. Bless him. Matt Vickers seething on College Green. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Jezza. Brian here. If Sir Keir Starmer didn't make a bad decision, he'd make no decisions at all. And secondly, Andy Burnham, he loves us. He loves the union, trade union, European Union, and given half a chance, the Soviet Union. Cheers, mate.
Laura Jane, good morning in Hampshire.
Good morning, all of you. What waffle the weekend from Andy. You didn't get anything. I mean, that's so like Starmer as well. We get just words that are meaningless. And I think it's very interesting that both Angela and Ed Miliband haven't said a peep at the moment. They're waiting to see how all this plays out. I think that's quite clever, although obviously it's worrying because we don't know whether they're standing or not. And the choices between Andy and Wes are just dire. I mean, Andy Burnham is almost as dangerous as Ed Miliband. Certainly, Ed Miliband is more intelligent, but we really are in trouble at the moment. I mean, I just can't believe it. I'm a little older than you, a little older, and I just don't remember the mess is unbelievable. I really, really don't know what this country is coming to.
Is that it? You can tell me it's over. What's going on this morning? The kit's all gone to... Oh, my God. No, it's not over. Oh, right. Look at this. This is really good, Laura. Listen. This is brilliant. I've just said to Big Dave, you could tell me when the voice did it. He's just said to me, listen, idiot, it's a live caller. Well done. You are absolutely right. I'm an idiot. Laura, I'll tell you why I agree with mate. I'll tell you why I agree with you. I watched that interview with Burnham. The people of Makerfield will make a decision. They'll either think this guy can save the Labour Party or, in essence, he's going to use us to just get to Starmer. But I agree with you about Rayner and Miliband, because if he doesn't win this constituency, it's not a given. We've talked about how Reform did last time, and we talk about the fact that 63% of this constituency voted to leave. The reason Wes Streeting's come out and gone, I think we should leave the EU, is to put the pressure back on of course, Burnham, and we've played that clip. He wants to, but he daren't say it. Anybody leading the Labour Party, this is how I see this, right, is in a position now that the Tory party found themselves in, because there are so many different factions that you spend all the time trying to please too many people and there's no conviction from the top. And when I saw him asked about the EU at the weekend, despite what he said last September, like you, I thought, you're much of the same as Starmer, too scared to put your neck on the line. And people, intelligent people in Makerfield, will look at that and go, you're using us, you're taking the mickey, don't you think?
Yes, but the other point I wanted to make is I think Jacob Rees-Mogg is right. I really, really think the Conservatives should stand back, because this is not about all the different political views. This is about a Labour leader, whoever that may be, and this is very important. Rupert Lowe as well, I think, should stand back. We just have to have, or not us, I mean Makerfield, have to have a choice between Labour and Reform, because it's a stark moment for our country.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Laura, don't think me rude, my darling. Love having you on. Thank you so much. Busy breakfast show as ever. Laura Jane in Hampshire. Keep your calls coming. And, of course, your voice notes. All right, Dave. Baldy Dave's a happy man. 0344 off to Turkey next week. 0344 499 1000. That was just a cheek shot because he put me right in my place. Let's say good morning to the First Lady of Breakfast, our roving talk breakfast presenter and reporter who's done a sterling job this weekend at the Unite the Kingdom March. Samara Gill, good morning.
Morning, JK. How are you?
I'm all right, because I was on kid duty because I've got so many at the weekend, and I didn't get involved. I know you did, and we'll talk a minute and show you this clip. But I just wanted to start, as I started before, with a caller. So you had the Unite the Kingdom March, and you had a Palestinian march, and the police, by all accounts, did a great job. But Starmer, on Friday, only released a video worried and aimed at Unite the Kingdom. Nothing about Palestinian hate marches then?
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, Jeremy. Look, Keir Starmer, you know, he's someone who's allowed anti-Semitism to go completely rife on the streets. You know, he allowed Alaa al-Fatah, the Egyptian dissident, back in, who said a bunch of horrific things. He actually gave him British citizenship. The man hadn't stepped foot on British soil before that. He met with former terrorist Syrian leader, Syrian president. And I really just think it's crazy that this is where he chose to have the sort of security mental breakdown and put the foot down. when it came to security. So yeah, he deployed over 4,000 police officers. He enacted facial recognition technology for the first time. He was acting like this was some sort of second coming of D-Day. And it wasn't at all. I mean, I was there. I've obviously attended a lot of protests. I think there's ugliness on both sides that comes out from the more extreme factions that do just end up showing on the day. But the majority of people there were just peace-loving, normal people. Most of them actually our viewers. I was inundated with lovely comments about you, Jeremy, and the work that we're doing over at Talk. So I think it's just sort of Keir Starmer's basket of deplorables moment to be calling these normal protesters a sort of basket of deplorables.
And I think that's the issue. There doesn't seem to be any fairness. So if you, I mean, I've said this before, and I know you'll agree with me. I've no time for the far right, and I've no time for the far left. I believe in free speech and democracy, but it strikes me that anybody who is brave enough to go, this is my flag. I don't like people who shouldn't be in this country being allowed to come in, take advantage of stuff that tax-paying, hard-working Brits have paid for and laugh in our faces. And then if we have the cojones to say you better leave, come up with some ridiculous law under the ECHR to stay. Because I think fairness, the F word, is the most important thing. Now, we've got a clip. I just want to say this is Samara. It was pretty full on down there. If you have young kids in the car or you're at home, there is a violent threat in this, but this is brilliant work. This is Samara at the dual marches this Saturday in London town.
And shoot him in the neck like Charlie Kirk. It's getting very aggressive.
So let me ask you this, right? Because I repeat what I said. There's stuff about Tommy Robinson I don't agree with. There's stuff that he says that I do agree with. The man's got a criminal record. Other people criticise him. He's a place for debate. People can make their own minds up. But you're allowing that hate march to say, shoot him in the neck like Charlie Kirk. And you've got our Prime Minister saying to the Unite British people, I'm going to put lots and lots of police there because I'm worried that you're full of hatred. Why the hell weren't those people rounded up and arrested then?
It's a great question, and this really does show the level of two-tier policing that was going on. I mean, the police presence at the Unite the Kingdom march was absolutely insane. I mean, and I think that is founded in some way because it was going to be a massive protest. They needed that coverage just to protect everyone inside and away from the protest. But on the other side, where the pro-Palestinian stand up to racism crew were, it was a cesspit. It really was. There was so much hatred going on. So many sort of horribly activist, mad threats of violence that happened. And that clip's now gone viral online. Elon Musk is now involved. I think the US government is trying to ban some of those people that were included within that chant, which is, I mean, you can think about that what you will, because it's sort of like, is banning good or is banning bad? That opens a whole other kettle of fish. But I think it is really concerning. You know, I do want to think if the shoe was on the other foot and if people at the other march were chanting, oh, let's shoot all illegal migrants on entry, which is a horrible, horrible thing to say, and another death chant, then the police presence would be madness. But of course, you know, we had 47 arrests over the weekend. That's, if I do quick maths, you know, like 93 police officers per arrest. I think the public should also be asking if the taxpayer dollars that were spent on this, £5 million, was even worth it, and if this was just all inside Keir Starmer's head.
But I remember after Southport, and at that moment after Southport, we didn't know that the fact that the guy whose identity it was, I never get his name, Rudy Bicana, he wasn't an illegal migrant. He was a church-going Christian born in this country who came from Wales. I still believe to this day that the very reason Starmer didn't release that information was that so he could go on television and say, these are far-right thugs, send all the police, round them up, on television, court cases the next day, despite the fact we've got no judges, and jail on Sunday, despite the fact we've got no space. It's the same thing as yesterday. I am not like you, and I'm so glad you made that analogy. There are bad factions on both the far right and the far left, but if you continue to say to anybody and everybody that turned up in London for the Unite the Kingdom march with their families, with their Union Jacks, old and young, you're horribly poisonous, right-wing, fascist, racist thugs. You are in trouble because the hard-working, and I know we use it, but it's true, the hard-working Brit's going to go, what, that's not me. I've every right to fly my flag and I've every right to be proud. I had a debate at the weekend with somebody. They go, oh, you know, you want everybody to... No, I don't. I've told the story till I'm blue in the face about the guy that drives me back at night. He came from Bangladesh. He's more angry about what's going on in this country than I am, Samara, because he did it properly, learnt the language, has a job, pays his taxes and respects this country. If you're saying to people, break in, have what you want, what are you saying to the hard-working Brit at the same time? It's outrageous.
Absolutely. I think that you've got, you know, a very good degree of common sense about you. I think some of the speakers at that march didn't.
Yeah.
Definitely an air of just going way too far on the other side where we do start to all hate each other. I don't know how united everything was there. What I can tell you is, though, from going to both of the protests, that the United Kingdom is very much divided, not united, and that's very unfortunate. And I'm not even going to attribute the two political movements to it. I'll attribute Iran, China, and Russia, who have used disinformation to flood the internet and turn everyone in this country against each other. They want all our resources being put into this and used onto this on the streets. And it was a great success over their side of the world on Saturday. Not such a great one in Britain.
Great to have you on, my darling. We'll see you very soon. Excellent work, by the way. Thank you so much indeed for doing it. Samara Gill, brilliant. Talking about the Unite March. I'm going to be a little bit late. John, good morning.
Starmer and the Unite the Kingdom rally. He's going to ban people coming from other countries in case they may say a few hurty words. Yet he can't stop illegal migrants coming over to this country, creating all sorts of crimes and horrors. The man's a joke. He sounds like Zippy from Rainbow.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh my God, welcome back and welcome along. Just gone 8 o'clock, we're live across the United Kingdom. We would talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Brit, a show presented by a man who manages to confuse somebody on the phone with a voice note. So they're all now going, "Are you all right, Jez?" Yes, I'm fine. Listen, welcome to the show. What are you waking up to? This extraordinary story. What I love about this show, and I love about alarm clock Brits. Andy Burnham. Look, we've been on and on about Starmer for months, it seems. A man with no plan who's lost any credibility with the British people. So it's all sort of kicked off since we finished on Thursday. Wes Streeting resigns as Health Secretary, says he's going to stand a leadership campaign. Next minute, Burnham. We've got this man, Josh Simmons, to stand aside in Makerfield. I'm going to win that seat, stride into Westminster and overthrow the dullest, most boring Prime Minister in history. And then the question started, because Streeting, as an operator, said, if I'm elected, I think we should leave the EU instantly. Andy, that's what you said last September. Listen to this. This is Burnham last September.
Long term, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to say it. I want to rejoin. I hope in my lifetime I see this country rejoin the European Union. I'm absolutely clear about that. I believe in unions of all kinds. The union that is the UK. The European Union benefited this country. Trade unions. People prosper more when they're part of unions of countries or whatever. That's my belief, so I'm going to say it clearly.
The only union he didn't mention there was the Soviet Union. We'll leave that where it is. So that was September, but when Streeting said, if I win, I'm leaving the EU, that's what you said, Andy, wasn't it? And all the newspapers go, what is your opinion now, Andy Burnham? This was Saturday.
Are you in favour of rejoining the European Union?
I've said in the long term there is a case for that, but I'm not advocating that in this by-election. In fact, what I am saying is focus now domestically. Britain has got to focus very much on the here and now and the issues that are affecting people.
The here and now. Then we had this long speech about the need for change with absolutely no meat on the bone. Elaine, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. I'm sick to death of hearing that Andy Burnham's name, Angela Rayner. I'm sick to death of it. What we need is a general election, get rid of a lot of them and start afresh. Just have a general election. Good show. Bye for now.
Lovely. 8:05, 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Get your voice notes in, get your calls, get your texts. Andy Burnham, Kevin Blair, before I go to my next guest. Burnham's ruined Manchester. Good Lord, he's turned this city centre into some sort of electric bike free-for-all. Deansgate now has a massive cycleway, which in reality is a lane almost exclusively for delivery electric bikes whose cyclists are dressed like bandits. They speed and don't stop at lights. Very often you see them fighting in the streets. Dangerous. On a busy day, it can take about half an hour to travel 100 metres. Good luck, UK. Well, here's a lady that will tell us entirely the truth. She won her seat in Runcorn and Helsby, and I'm sure she'll be central what's going to go on in terms of reform in that Makerfield constituency. A very good morning, Sarah Puchin.
Good morning, Jeremy. Lovely to be here.
I'm really confused about all of this because here's the thing. I was quite surprised, genuinely. I saw an interview with Burnham at the weekend. I played 2 clips, but he was asked about would he invite Keir Starmer to Makerfield to campaign for him. And he sort of said anybody's welcome. But why I'm confused and why you can help me is because Reform last time said in Gorton and Denton, vote for Reform, get Starmer out. So Andy Burnham's saying vote for Labour to get Starmer out. So what's your slogan going to be?
Well, look, it's like everything else that this Labour government or Labour politicians do at the moment. They just copy Reform, don't they? And here we are. Andy Burnham's even stolen our last slogan. The local elections was all about vote reform, get Starmer out, and look, he's stolen our slogan. But the fact is, you know, on a serious note here, all you're seeing from Andy Burnham is another Labour politician who we can just label as betrayal. He will betray the voters of Makerfield on their 63% vote leave stance. He will absolutely sacrifice their desire to leave the EU to do that Brexit vote in order to further his own ambitions. But also, there's not only that, is there? He is betraying the voters of Makerfield. He's not interested in their local issues. He's not interested in looking after them. This is a stepping stone to number 10. He's barely disguised it. And then, of course, finally, there's the huge betrayal in Greater Manchester of all the victims of grooming gangs, which Andy Burnham has done nothing to implement those 20 recommendations of the Justice of the Alexis J report.
Very interesting and very true. Here's the thing, and I was actually being serious, because in terms of what he stands for, he's essentially saying, I've come to your constituency to get you to vote for me so I can go to Westminster and depose a man that you voted for 5 years. I'm not sticking up for Starmer, but here's something I bet you and nobody at Reform HQ's thought of. Keir Starmer is going to want Reform to win the bloody by-election in Makerfield. How ironic is that?
Well, as we say, Starmer is Reform's greatest asset at the moment. So you know, bring it on. We don't know what our slogan's going to be yet, or at least I don't know. I'm sure we'll be launching it today or tomorrow, along with our candidate. Again, I don't know who that's going to be, so don't grill me, but I'm sure we will have an excellent candidate to field up there. And yes, of course, I will be up there endlessly. Lee Anderson's already been, Richard Tice has already been, and I'll be going later in the week. We will fight this tooth and nail. Of course, it's going to be close, but the key messages are: if you vote Labour, if you vote Burnham, you are just voting for more betrayal.
I mean, that's the thing. When I saw his interview at the weekend, and I'm interested from your point of view as a Reform MP, actually, can I play this to Sarah? Because this was and it was a fine piece of work, but I don't know what the guy's name is from ITV, but he was basically saying, what are you going to do? Have a listen, have a watch.
Straight question, do you have confidence in Keir Starmer as Prime Minister?
I've always worked with him, and I do have you know, confidence in him as a person, and actually
But him as Prime Minister, do you have confidence in him as Prime Minister?
What he has done. I think the thing I would say is some of the good things the government has done has not, you know, come through in terms of you know, people's awareness of the big changes, rail renationalisation.
And why is that, do you think?
I don't know. You know, it's a hard thing, isn't it, being in politics, getting your message over. Perhaps it's the sense that there isn't a really clear forward story for Britain and where it's going, and you know, that I think is what we've got to really kind of pull forward now.
Do you want Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, to come and campaign with you?
I want the support of any Labour colleague in the country if they want, you know, if they're on board with.
Will he be inviting you up to help you campaign?
Let me put it this way. I mean, it's not a traditional by-election campaign. I'm saying different things to a degree in terms of what the government has been saying. If people are glad that I'm breaking this open and want to come and join the campaign, then, you know, but I'm not saying everybody must come and join the campaign, because it is a different campaign.
So you're not standing on Keir Starmer's record, and therefore it'd be kind of odd for him to come and campaign with you?
Well, I'm standing on a call for change, aren't I? I think we need to change Labour to some degree so we can change politics, change the country.
Sarah Poaching from Reform, 3 things I picked up from that. He keeps saying it's not a traditional campaign, it's a different campaign. The critics would say that's because you're using this campaign to get to Westminster to take on the Prime Minister. Then this repeated call for change. My criticism of this Prime Minister and this guy now is there's never any bloody meat on the bone, is there?
But let me just point one thing out. Andy Burnham has U-turned already, and he's not even an MP. He's U-turned on his Brexit stance. 1 minute he wants us to rejoin, and now he's backtracking. So look, we've seen, I don't know, 20 U-turns from this Prime Minister. Andy Burnham wants to be the Prime Minister. He's not making any secret of that, and yet he's U-turned already. So you know what, we all know, don't we, what we're going to get from Andy Burnham. It's going to be no better than Keir Starmer. The worry is that it could be a lot worse. He will take us into more spending. He will sacrifice our growth again because of spend, and of course he will tax to pay for it. So it's going to be a lot worse if this guy gets in. But look, the fact is, I also think he's deluded. He's riding on this ticket of being king of the North. Believe me, I live in the Northwest. You know, I know that Andy Burnham is no king of the North. He talks about his great record in as mayor of Greater Manchester. Listen, the people up here know that Manchester was built and developed and thrived with no thanks to Andy Burnham. It was done before he got anywhere near it. It was done by the likes of Richard Lees and Howard Bernstein. You know, so Andy Burnham is riding on a ticket of hot air. That was a whole pile of word salad we heard them from.
It's quite interesting as well over the weekend. Lisa Nandy, I'm going to put this to you, the Culture Secretary, she has had a go at Wes Streeting for opening this debate about the EU. And in fact, Burnham's allies accuse Streeting of sabotage. Now, we all know he's an operator. Quite patently, he's brought up the EU thing because he knows that Andy Burnham is in a dodgy position because he's got to win a seat in an area that was 63% Leave. Plus, Lisa Nandy is an MP just down the road and probably knows exactly what those communities think about Brexit and going forward. The thing for me that's really interesting is there doesn't seem to be... I mean, they're all fighting like rats in a ship and we can laugh, but the truth of the matter is, while this is going on, the very reason they got in, Sarah, is because the country was fed up to the back teeth with all the shenanigans whilst the cost of living was rising and crime was increasing and you couldn't go to court and you couldn't... Exactly the same is coming now, which is another thing that the Labour Party need to think about, because it might not matter what candidate they put up. People are going to go, you're all more interested in your own careers than you are doing something about our lives.
Listen, I actually, this is a good example. I went on Saturday to the United Kingdom march. I went and observed it from a window, actually, overlooking Whitehall. And when I could see how safe and peaceful it was, I wandered down and wandered through Parliament Square and spoke to people there. And it's all the same message. This government and the last government are no longer putting British people first. All those good, decent people there, families, grandparents, you know, there was every different type of person there, and all they want is to be heard. They want their voices to be heard. They want to be put ahead of illegal asylum seekers on housing lists. They want our police to police our streets. They just want to get back to basic common sense. This Labour government has accelerated the decline, in my view, that was the Tory government. And when it comes back to people like Burnham, it's going to be even faster. It's going to be even worse.
Can you not see Andy Burnham, the man that loves unions, joining the Union of Common Sense? Do you not think that's the union he'd want to join then, or not?
Do you know what? The people on those streets, they're not going to vote for Andy Burnham. They have had enough. They know that the only party that will enact Brexit, because let's face it, you know, 10 years on, nobody has made the most of Brexit. And that is because we have not come out of the ECHR. The only party that will come out of the ECHR is reform.
Can I ask your reaction, by the way, to Starmer, who on Friday, he is still the Prime Minister, don't forget that, Poachin, otherwise you'll be in trouble at school. He gave this statement, or rather a video, where he was very concerned about the Unite the Kingdom march and security, and apparently there were thousands of police, but only one way. How then, what is your response to the fact, and we just saw it with Samara Gill, I don't want to upset anybody, if you've got kids in the car, please be aware of what I'm about to say. The people in the other march, we've got video footage shouting... We haven't got the clip, but they were saying shoot him in the neck like Charlie Kirk, for God's sake. Why weren't those people rounded up and arrested? Where's the fairness there, then?
Because we currently have a government that enacts two-tier justice. We know that. You know, there was facial recognition at United Kingdom, nothing at the Palestinian March.
Wow.
The whole of Trafalgar Square, when I walked past it, was boarded up with the most aggressive-looking metal fencing to keep people out. It was absolutely shocking by Sadiq Khan. He'd taken down all the Union Jacks in Parliament Square. Well, we didn't need his Union Jacks. We had our own.
Oh, God. What's he going to do when the World Cup's on? Don't get me on that man. Let's just ask a couple of things, if it's OK, because I completely agree with you about that, Marcia. And I make the point, and I'm sure that you would as well, I've no time for the far right, I've no time for the far left. But if these people in power assume that everybody who turned up there is not just a British citizen or just a patriot or somebody who just cares about their family and what's right and what's wrong and can we have a bit of fairness, my F word for the day, then they're missing the point. Let's go back to the by-election. I know you won't be able to answer this, but my job is to ask it. Are you at Reform going to be asking the Tories and Restore to stand aside? Because Jacob Rees-Mogg said this morning that should be a given. Your response, Sarah?
Yeah, I read that too, and absolutely not. Look, we're about a democracy. Anybody that wants to field a candidate can field a candidate. Let's let the voters decide. I do believe that this is, of course, a two-horse race between Reform and Labour. But we saw from the 2024 results in the general election, the Tories were in third place then. I don't think the Tories will be a big problem.
You just won all the seats in the local councils in this area, didn't you?
We have indeed. We now have a Reform council in St Helens, in Wigan. It's a good area for us. It's obviously where my seat of Runcorn and Helsby is. It's a strong Reform area, but we take nothing for granted, and that's the difference between Reform and Labour. We do not take the British voter for granted. We will go and knock on every door that we possibly can, and we will ask for those votes, but we take nothing for granted.
Is this by-election then, in Reform's mind, going to be more about a debate about Brexit? Is it going to be about local issues? Is it going to be about a parachuted-in candidate? What's going to be the main thing on the doorstep, Sarah?
Well, look, I think that the people in Makerfield want to feel that they are going to be offered a candidate that will look after them, just as I have spent the last year dedicating myself to looking after the people of Runcorn and Helsby. That is the first function of your Member of Parliament. And so they want somebody who's not going to use the seat as a stepping stone, who they'll never see, who is only furthering his own career. They want to see a good, strong candidate that's going to look after them.
I've got some breaking news, and if there is anybody associated with the Andy Burnham campaign to not only be selected tonight to be the candidate for Labour at Makerfield, or indeed is going to be supporting him, disaster has struck. On the BBC this morning, the worst endorsement you could get as a prospective candidate, David Lammy has just come out and said, I'm heading north to campaign for Andy Burnham. Play the clip. Oh, God, it's all over Burnham. Play the clip.
He's a great guy, very able politician, wonderful communicator. Of course I'll be campaigning with him. Now that by-election is up, now it will be up to the people of Makerfield to determine, of course. And I don't think we're quite clear yet when the election will be. But again, of course I'll be supporting Andy Burnham. It would be great to have him back in Parliament.
Right, sorry, so forgive me if you are in the car, I'll get your kids in a minute. You've now got Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, and the Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy actively campaigning for a candidate who hasn't been selected yet, but who's only standing to replace your boss. You couldn't make it up.
Well, you couldn't make it up, but obviously Reform are really quaking in our boots now we know that David Lammy's on his way up.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I hope he doesn't go too soon, because I've got a question to him tomorrow. He hates it when I get on my feet in the chamber.
Listen, great to have you on. It'll be so interesting to follow up this. Sarah Poach in Runcorn and Helsby's MP, the next door constituency. She says Reform understands that the people up there voted leave. 63% of the people in that Makerfield constituency voted to leave the European Union. And over the weekend, with Streeting in the background pushing the buttons, it transpires that Andy Burnham wants it. But he's not. He might have changed his mind. We're not altogether sure. He wants change. We're not sure what change or how he's going to do it. It's 8:22. Oliver, William, Robin, Carl. Good morning, darling. He won't get out of the car. He's going to school. He's a top boy. Monarchy Roo and my beautiful wife. My wife's coming in on Thursday, by the way, people. She's coming into the studio, so I need you to behave yourself, put away all the stuff that we... What do you mean me? Oh, here we go. Here we go. That's the man who watched the Eurovision contest. Right, listen, back in 3. Morning, Jay.
Morning, Jezza. Jay in Cambridgeshire. Just wondering, do you think Keir Starmer would ever publicly apologise to the tens of thousands of people that he labelled far right that attended on Saturday's Unite the Kingdom protest? I very much doubt it. Have a good one, mate.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:25. Can we just go back to that point? Because I'm absolutely with Christian. We were just talking about it. So Lisa Nandy, Cabinet Minister, and David Lammy, Deputy Prime Minister and Cabinet Minister, have over the weekend come out and said, of course we're going to go to Makerfield and campaign for Andy Burnham, who's trying to unseat your boss. So you are also looking out for your futures. And what happens... See, this is where... See, if I had... I'd sack him this morning, you see. I'd say, you can do one. He can't, though. He's completely impotent. What happens if Burnham loses? Oh, it's interesting. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. That's Lammy campaigning to keep his own job, says Tony. I think you're spot on, son. Morning to Russ in Devon. That interview with Burnham, what a joke. Just another reincarnation of Starmer. Won't answer a question. Great show as always. Hello to Ian Andrew. Sarah is bang on about Burnham. We hate him up in North. He's just Starmer in mascara. Most of his fans are south of Watford Gap. Ian in Oldham. Starmer in mascara is how it's described. We'll say a very good morning to the legend, the man who doesn't deign to come on very often now since he got the top job, thanks to me, Jack Elsom, a political editor of The Sun. I mean, I tune into Question Time, I tune into Jack, can you come on? Who the hell are you? What happens, Elsom? What happens?
Listen, Jeremy, I've always got time for Talk TV and for you especially, having made my career and pushed me right to the top of political media. I'll be forever in your debt, as you know. He was on that. It was really funny, actually. During that by-election, he was sat on some very posh political programme, and I was texting him, and you kept looking at your phone and texting me during the break. Mate, mate, this is some story unfolding. Yes. And you know, after all the... And I was at pains to say this morning that it must seem that we've been on this mission to get rid of Starmer. No, we've been on a mission to point out how useless he is. But this extraordinary story that, I mean, we finished on air at 10 o'clock on Thursday, just to take people back. Wes Streeting then resigns as Health Secretary, doesn't call a leadership campaign. Minutes later, the King of the North, self-styled, finds a seat. Josh Simmons says, I'll step aside in Makerfield, the man who left the government 6 weeks ago for spying on journalists. Thought I'd drop that in, Labour together. And then over the weekend, this extraordinary sort of... And I sort of feel like doffing my cap to Streeting, because he's come out and said, you know, oh, we're leaving the... If I was PM, we leave the EU.
Burnham's allies accuse him of sabotage because, of course, that immediately puts Burnham in a really difficult position. I won't bother repeating the clips. We've already played them this hour. But last September, he said, I want us to leave the Union. Get back in the Union. I want us to get back in the... I believe in unions, not the Soviet Union. I believe in unions. Get back. And then over the weekend, when picked by the guy from ITV, he couldn't answer the question. And everybody's just going, right, so hold on a minute. You're going to walk into this constituency... to use it to go to London to overthrow Keir Starmer in an area where 63% of the people voted to leave the EU, and the Reform Party that's pro-it, obviously, won all 12 seats in the local elections. Interesting, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, we spent all week thinking that Wes Streeting was politically inept because he couldn't manage to corral the suitable amount of Labour MPs to launch a leadership bid. But actually, this is one pretty ingenious political trap that he's laid for Andy Burnham by making this debate about the European Union once again. He knows that Andy Burnham will currently be squirming because everyone knows his views about the European Union. He wants to go back into it. He's made no bones about it when he thought it was politically expedient in terms of getting favour with the Romaniac Labour grassroots. Now he walks into the constituency of Makerfield asking them to make him the MP, where you're right, a vast majority wanted to leave the European Union, voted as such 10 years ago, and polls show today still want to remain outside of the European Union. And so for Andy Burnham now, the supposed great authentic man of British politics, the straight-talking northerner, he is now trying to almost backtrack on that view, but also saying, I think pretty inauthentically, I don't want to make this by-election about national politics. Well, I'm sorry, Andy, whether you like it or not, it is about national politics, because let's not pretend that you're coming back to Westminster to sit on the Health Select Committee. You're coming back to challenge the Prime Minister for the Premiership, for the top job. So it is in large part about national politics. It is about what Andy Burnham would do in 10 Downing Street. And for him to try and put Brexit as a side issue in this, having clearly gone on the record before, is pretty offensive to the people of Makerfield who might want to know his views about it.
I am so with you, and it's taken 2.5 hours this morning. It shows how brilliant you are. You're absolutely right. You put it so well. Streeting, we spent last week going, you haven't got the cojones to stand up, you haven't got the numbers, you're this, you're that, you're a bit of a whiner. The truth is, it's a political masterstroke. He will think from his point of view. Reform will think from their point of view, whatever the voters think. But you're right. This is... I won't bore you again with it, but there's a clip where the guy goes into more detail, Jack, and he says to him, you know, would you have Starmer to campaign for you? And he said, well, anybody is welcome. But hold on a minute. The only reason you're standing is to get Starmer out. So why wouldn't you have the conviction to go, no, I don't want him there. I'm coming to Makerfield because I want to win the seat and throw Keir Starmer out. And he said, I'm calling for change. And the guy went, what? And he went, well, yeah, we're calling for change. It looks like the same waffle with no meat on the bone that we've had to stomach, Jack, for the last 2 years. If I'm absolutely... I was quite surprised, genuinely quite surprised, at how lacking in conviction, oomph, whatever you want to say, he was in that interview. I thought he was supposed to be this incredible media performer. He didn't blow me away, mate, and I'm being completely serious.
Well, I have to say, in terms of the polling in this country, Andy Burnham is, by all accounts, a pretty popular politician in a pretty sparse field, let's just say. Most people's political favourability ratings are in negative territory. Andy Burnham is popular as Labour potential leaders go. The difficulty is that he's been in Manchester now since, 2016, 2017. He's been very successful at punching the bruises of various Tory governments, and he's had some success with local infrastructure projects. The problem is that you chat to people who served with Andy Burnham back when he was a Cambridge-educated Blairite special advisor, when he was a cabinet minister in Gordon Brown's government, when he was in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet, and they say that actually he was pretty hopeless on all accounts. You know, I was speaking to a serving cabinet minister the other day that wanted to remind me that Andy Burnham ran 2 pretty awful leadership bids. He was the last person to leave Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet when everyone else had left only when he saw the writing on the wall. And so, you know, it's always a danger with these princes over the water who people invest so much political stock in and think that they're going to come back, ride to the rescue, and somehow all of Labour's problems will suddenly evaporate. I think that if people do think that, they're going to be in for a pretty rude awakening. But, you know, you made a fantastic point, Jeremy. This is the most topsy-turvy by-election, I think, in recent memory, because you're going... basically, you're being asked, if you want to get rid of Keir Starmer, you have to vote Labour. So, you know, and the best way...
I said this to Sarah Poaching. I said it's Sarah Poaching because reforms... what was it in Gorton and Denton? Vote reform, Starmer out. You're now saying, in this... Andy Burnham saying, vote Labour and get Starmer out. That's ridiculous.
Well, exactly. And funnily enough, the best way that Starmer could throw this by-election is by going out there and campaigning on the doorstep.
Well, so this is the other thing. He must be the only Labour Prime Minister, right, who wants reform to win this constituency. And if he went up there because he's so toxic on the doorsteps, it might screw it up for his own... It's weird. I want to bring you,
isn't it?
It's crackers, and I want to bring you on actually to the other thing, which is over the weekend. I think Jacob Rees-Mogg, dear old Jacob, said, "I think the Tories and Restore should stand aside." This has been rebutted by almost everybody from the Tory party. And in fact, Sarah Poaching from Reform said no. Do you see it as a straight fight between the Labour incumbents and Reform, or do you see other people taking slices of the pie? Are the Greens going to rise again, put in a green coat wearing plumber and win?
Yeah, I mean, like either Reform or the Tories are going to win that seat. Either Reform or Labour are going to win that seat. The Tories aren't even at the races. Restore Britain, basically a sort of social media phenomenon at some point, although I do actually think they have the power to skim some votes off Reform, but probably not in this seat. The Greens actually could probably maybe take a few votes from Labour, but, you know, it is going to be, I think, quite a tight race. And so, you know, any party who is exposed to having their votes eaten into by some of the smaller parties who to this by-election anyway, yeah, no, of course it's a risk. You're not going to see the Tories campaigning in Makerfield. You're not going to see them pouring any resources into there. They know it's a no-hope. The Greens will probably go for it because they want to land a bit of a blow on Labour, and they've got some willing activists who are willing to go up there. Restore Britain, I can't see them doing much damage in terms of Makerfield, to be honest.
And did you see this morning? Because I love talking to you, so because you're right there, aren't you? At the weekend we had Lisa Nandy, whose constituency is right down the road in Wigan, so she knows absolutely, whatever she tells anybody, she knows absolutely the strength of the Leave vote up there. She was sort of making out that, you know, she shouldn't get, you know, he shouldn't have been making it about Brexit, it's about other things, it should be about local issues. But she said, I'll go and campaign for him. We've just had on the BBC, Calamitous Lammy. I mean, this is a death knell for anybody. David Lammy says, I'm going to go up to Makerfield and campaign for him. Two things to you. One is he hasn't been selected yet, which means it's a shoo-in. The other thing is, what happened to collective cabinet responsibility? You've got Lisa Nandy and David Lammy both actively saying, we're going to go up north and campaign for a man who wants to screw our boss over.
I mean, I'll tell you, someone in Westminster once told me, and it's always stuck with me, power in Westminster is not where power currently resides. Power is where it's going to reside next. And Starmer is already being seen as a lame duck Prime Minister in Downing Street. Anything he announces, really, doesn't carry much weight because people are expecting Andy Burnham or another leader to come in within the next few months, fairly or unfairly. But that is now the mindset of most people in Westminster, that there will be a Labour leadership contest and Keir Starmer will not survive it. You know, his allies are saying that he will dig in and will fight any Labour leadership contest, but the herd is already starting to move. And it is not just Labour MPs, but it goes right to the top of the cabinet. People who think that Keir Starmer won't be here in a few months' time, and it will be either Andy Burnham, Wes Streeting, or Angela Rayner.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's ask you, as the political editor of The Sun, what happens, this for me is really important, what happens if Burnham doesn't win that seat for whatever reason, Reform win it or anybody else, right? It's all about Brexit and the local, they won 12 councillors, didn't they? What happens happens then? Because what's really interesting is how silent our Ange has gone since she allegedly, and quite interestingly in terms of time, managed to announce her innocence with HMRC. And I'm not getting into a debate about that. But she's presumably sitting on her hands, Jack, because she's going. I'm left wing. If he wins, I'll just row in behind him and become Deputy Prime Minister. But if he doesn't win, I'll be the left's darling and I'll stand up against Streeting, right?
Totally. I mean, I think this has been underpriced in the commentary in recent days. Angela Rayner, the submarine, sort of lurking beneath the water, waiting for the rest of them to implode, and then she's the one who can pick up the pieces. I mean, you're right. If Burnham wins, and he shows that he can win a reform-facing seat in very dire circumstances for the party, that is his own popularity bounce. And I think that he would almost walk back to Westminster and, within a matter of months, be coronated by Labour MPs. That is almost certain. But if he loses, that is basically his probably career in frontline Westminster politics over. He can't go around tasking himself around every single constituency. I mean, that is probably it now, for him. He can't just go around saying, oh, I failed in that one and therefore I'm going to move to somewhere a bit safer.
So now or never for him, now or never for Streeting and Rayner, really, as well.
Yeah, totally. And you have to hand it to Andy Burnham. He is taking one massive political gamble here. It might blow up in his face, but actually I do quite admire the sort of the boldness to come forward and do it. But you're right that Wes Streeting, Angela Rayner, it will be a shootout between the two of them. They'll both probably get the numbers in the event that Andy Burnham doesn't get in. And then you have to say that it'll probably look like it'll be in Angela Rayner's favour because the grassroots of the Labour Party are very factionalist. They are quite left-wing. And they see Angela Rayner as their standard bearer, where Wes Streeting's been more of a political street fighter, willing to have arguments, more of the sort of the centrist wing of the party, rather than Angela Rayner's left-wing view, which is shared by most of the party members. And so you can imagine a scenario where it's very easy for Angela Rayner to become Prime Minister, no matter how frightening that is to a lot of voters in the country.
I try and explain to my wife how exciting this is, and she goes, yeah, politics is really exciting. But it is, isn't it? I mean, this isn't going anywhere. I haven't told the bosses yet. I'll pay for it if I have to. I want to do the show that on that Friday from Makerfield, sit on a park bench and do the show. It'd be quite funny, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I see you there.
Good man. Listen, Jack, thank you so much indeed. The legend that is Jack Ailson. Thank you, my friend. Political editor of The Sun, 20 minutes to 9 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Burnham. Oh, God. Cheers. Andy Burnham in those interviews came across as another Labour gaslighter. I basically heard him say, I don't want to reverse Brexit until I get voted in, then I'll do. Then I will reverse it. You just can't trust any of them on that side right now. Bill, I wonder if Starmer will have a reshuffle anytime soon. There seems to be no cabinet collective responsibility. Of course there isn't. They're all going to Makerfield, right, to support Andy Burnham, who hasn't been adopted as candidate yet, because they're all thinking about their own careers. Morning, Michael.
Hi, good morning, Jeremy. It's Michael from Belfast here. I lived in Manchester for 35 years. In fact, I provided the car for your guests, the cars for your guests on the TV programme, who were all really well looked after, incidental. But I was back seeing my son in Manchester for Christmas, and the city centre brought tears to my eyes. That city's been destroyed, and Burnham has to take some responsibility as mayor. It was like a third world country around Piccadilly Gardens, Portland Street, or Albert Square. It was just so sad. And this is what's going to replace Starmer. We've suffered enough.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Monday morning, 18th of May. JK on the home of common sense. This is Talk, where you come. We want your views on the news of the day. 0344 499 1000. Apart from the Andy Burnham saga, the other big news story of the weekend was, of course, those dual marches, the Unite the Kingdom March and the pro-Palestine march. There seemed to be more police on the Unite the Kingdom March. Our Prime Minister, not mine, he made a video on Friday only talking about that march. Seemed very unfair and two-tier. Somebody who was there, we love this lady, Orla Minahan, leader of the Pink Ladies, of course, who's done such a fantastic job down in that wonderful... I'm coughing now, I've had a biscuit. Orla, you were there. What was it like? Because apparently Starmer was so concerned we had to have 10 times the police because everybody's far right. You're a far right thug, aren't you? That's
I am
what
a
you
far
are.
right thug. Yes, Jeremy, I am. And so are all the mothers who are Pink Ladies and all the grandmothers up and down this country, all far right thugs. The ladies were on stage on Saturday. They did an amazing job. Kerry, who did the speech on behalf of the Pink Ladies, is on with Julia later. And the feedback that we have had has been absolutely amazing. You know, a lady standing up, she's got 3 sons, talking about her concerns for the children of this country, talking about her concerns for their future. Everybody was absolutely, you know, beside themselves with pride at her having, you know, the strength to stand up there and say, we're not staying silent anymore. This country is a disaster. And when you look around on Saturday, children as young as 3 and 4, all the way up to women and old men in their 90s, of all colours and all backgrounds, saying, we want this country to be fair, we want our children to be safe, we want to be respected by the men and women that we are paying to protect us and this government. And what does that absolute nutcase of a Prime Minister do? Stands up and condemns us and calls us names. How dare he? How dare that man do that?
I'm going to read you something because, I completely adhere to what you're saying and I do find it... I don't have any time for the far right or the far left. I'll say it all morning. I agree with free speech and democracy, but we are reaching a point, certainly with this government, where if there is rhetoric that they disagree with, it is labelled far right. It happened after the Southport riots, but no mention of the other. This from Dave in South Gloucester, Orla. Why is Starmer so worried about and threatening towards the Unite the Kingdom marches and is so insulting towards those who take part in them? In my mind, it's because he hates the fact that the kingdom is uniting as this goes against everything he and Herman and the rest of them are working to achieve. They are the reason for division and disintegration of Great Britain, our history, our culture, our society and our values. And I think...
Absolutely.
I think that's so right. And when when I saw the video that it was just about that side... Sorry, again, if you've got kids in the car, I'm not going to play it, but we had video footage earlier of certain people from the Palestinian march shouting, shoot him in the neck like Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm the Prime Minister, I'm rounding them buggers up. They're in court this morning. I don't understand. We let shoplifters get away with shoplifting. We allow those people to get away with that. There's no balance to this, but he is going to be found out if this continues because the British public, like you say, they've had enough, right?
They've had enough. And the thing is, if he'd have come on Friday and said, there are marches this weekend, there are demonstrations, and all I'm saying is you've got a right to demonstrate, but please be respectful to the police. Please keep it peaceful, fill your boots. Fine, everybody would have said fine. But instead, he comes down like some dictator and tells people that we will feel the full force of the law. Who's advising this man? Kim Jong-un? It's just absolutely bizarre.
I'll tell you why it's bizarre. I'll tell you why I agree with you, Orla, right? You say bizarre, but what I find... Yeah, because... This is politics by focus group, right? Because my 6-year-old could have stood next to Starmer and gone, so if you're warning that side, why aren't you warning the other side? Do you realise that almost everything you say makes no bloody sense to anybody? What is wrong with you, man? It doesn't.
And the thing is that he's so deluded. Ultimately, the people that he's protecting are now the base of the Green Party, the Green voters. So his party, which are supposed to be the party of the working class, he has absolutely alienated every solitary one of those voters. And then he wonders why he's loathed and so are his party.
Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely crazy.
Couldn't agree more. But just to reiterate, great to have you on. It was a peaceful march. You don't...
Peaceful. No, but everybody, it was like carnival. And in fact, the irony is they come down on these people at this march. Notting Hill Carnival, Palestinian marches, all of which...
How many arrests at Notting Hill Carnival? How many stabbings, right?
Hundreds.
Yeah.
Saturday, nothing. I'm sure that there was the odd person that was a little bit drunk and disorderly.
Apparently Sadiq Khan took down all the flags around Westminster or Trafalgar Square. Did you hear that?
Of course he did, because they hate the British. They hate us. They hate us. They hate our traditions. They hate everything about us. And they have the audacity to stand in positions of power in this country, and they will rue the day that they did this, because they will be absolutely destroyed at the ballot box. And good.
Brilliant. I love it. All I'm in, Hayne. Thank you very much to the Pink Ladies. Top lady. 12 minutes to 9. We're live across the UK. Are we going to an ad break? Back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. He's a cheeky git, Brian in Dorset. He says, I normally listen to Jezza in the morning, but on Thursday I'm going to be watching on YouTube simply to see his wife, the poor cow that lives with this man. Completely, honestly. She's, yeah, she'll be on. And I'll be on my best behaviour. I'll be very, very quiet. Christian's like, why is she coming in? And I told him, because she's obsessed with you, Christian. She needs to meet you. 0344 499 1000. Before we go to Maggie Oliver. Sharon, good morning.
Morning, Jez. We went down to the march this weekend and it was absolutely brilliant. A lovely, lovely day. Never saw a bit of trouble. Just saw a few nutters about, but they didn't spoil our day. But we met some fantastic people. But one thing I must say is it's 18 years since I went to London, and the change in that city is amazing. I just think, oh, why are there these little rickshaws? It just looked like a third world country in some parts of it. Good show, Sharon from Yorkshire.
Thank you, Sharon. 8 minutes to 9. I haven't been to London for 18 years, but it's changed quite a bit. It's true, isn't it? It is. And anybody who has an opinion is apparently far right. But there we go. Listen, we've been talking this morning not just about the marches at the weekend, the main news story about Andy Burnham, the man who wants the King of the North, who wants to win Makerfield. Thank you, people. Turn on your head. Get to Westminster. Throw out Keir Starmer. It's all got a bit Pete Tong, because over the weekend, Well, Wes Streeting has come out of the woodwork and said, if I was elected, I'd be rejoining the EU, as Andy Burnham said in September. Oh, you've changed your mind, Andy. Oh, there you go. So people are criticising him. One person who did criticise him, and quite justifiably over the weekend, is our next guest. Maggie Oliver said that he failed to show leadership and courage when it came to the grooming gang scandal. Maggie, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Nice to see you, my darling. I was really shocked when I saw his interview with ITV. I thought this was supposed to be, I don't know Andy Burnham, I thought this was supposed to be somebody who was a conviction politician who could lead Labour out of the doldrums. It's a bit wishy-washy, and you've an example of that, haven't you?
Yeah, I do. I mean, first of all, I'd like to say that, you know, I've met and worked with Andy Burnham for over a period of about 7 years. And I like the guy. I said in the article that I did that, I'd rather go down the pub with him for a beer than with Keir Starmer any day of the week. But we are looking at very serious issues here. And, in 2017, when he became mayor, he has very publicly said that he heard me, going on, as I have been for 15 years, on the radio about the failures in Manchester around the grooming gangs, the rape gangs. And he almost immediately announced independent inquiries looking at Augusta in Manchester and Rochdale obviously in Rochdale. And I worked on both of those cases. Now, I think it's really important to say that everything was already in the public arena, because I'd been working on the drama Three Girls for about 4 years, and the Betrayed Girls, and they had just gone out that week. So really, to announce those inquiries wasn't a huge chance to take, because there was nothing new to find. What he did do, though, and what the two independent reviewers did, Gary Ridgway and Malcolm Newsom, they didn't shy away from saying what had gone on in Augusta and Rochdale. But to be honest, Jeremy, had they not, I would have absolutely hauled them over the coals. So I was a common denominator in those two parts of the independent review. In the middle of that, he squeezed the Oldham inquiry. I never worked in Oldham, and in all honesty, you can see the anger in Oldham that still exists, because there was only one victim spoken to in that review, and that was the girl who came to me at the end and said, why are they going to publish? They've not spoken to anybody in Oldham. And then they spoke to her, but nobody else. So that has never had credibility. But my real disappointment, disillusion, anger comes from the assurance review, because at the end, after the Rochdale review and Augusta, the assurance review was meant to assess whether there had been a change since the handling of Rochdale and Augusta in the present day. Now, I worked with Gary and Malcolm. They knew inside out what was going on in GMP, because they've been scrutinising it for 6 years. And they were forbidden from speaking to any victims or any survivors. I joined my voice to theirs, fighting for them to be allowed to interview people who had been working with GMP since 2019. And that was blocked at every step of the way. And it led to both Gary and Malcolm resigning in disgust, because they felt that it was going to be a paper exercise. I was asked to join a stakeholder panel. They brought in HMIC. We had a meet and greet for an hour, and 3 months later, they reported the first part of that assurance review without speaking to me, any of the stakeholders, any victims, any survivors, and it made it a worthless exercise. And in all honesty, Jeremy, it was a repeat of what happened in ICSA, when they looked at grooming gangs, organised networks, rape gangs. They allowed one victim to speak. So it was, they're marking their own homework. And
would you say about Burnham, and you made the point in that interview, which I want to make, you said that he, made initial responses, but I have some direct questions. Would you say that despite his initial words that actually the truth is that he failed the rape gang victims?
I think he failed to grasp the nettle when it came to looking at what's still going wrong today. It was very much a public relations exercise. He likes to be a people pleaser. But when it came to really drilling down and calling out people within GMP and social services who are his friends, I don't think he's got the bottle to do it.
So on the basis of that bottle, this is a man who's apparently going to walk into Makerfield, irrespective of what they might think about that, into a constituency 63% voted to leave the European Union. In the local elections, all 12 of their local council wards went to Reform, a pro-Brexit party. And this is what he's going to do with the sole intention of returning to Westminster to become the unelected Prime Minister of this country. Do you think he should be allowed?
You know that I've got to be careful because I'm a chair of a charity, but I obviously have opinions. And I think that the people within that community will look at this and see and consider whether this is really about his own personal ambition or whether it's in the interests of the country. And, you know, we're in a very dangerous place, I think, in our country. And this is going to cause intense uncertainty, and it's going to affect, you know, financial markets and confidence. And so, you know, there is already a Labour politician there who is in Parliament. Why do we need another one unless...
Well, the truth about him is, and I know you can't be political, but I'll keep trying. The truth about him is Josh Simons, he got sacked from the government 6 weeks ago being part of a Labour think tank called Labour Together that got into trouble for spying on newspapers. Can I ask you a question? And I mean what I'm going to say. I, like Peter Bleksley, think you're the most incredible woman. You should have been... I think you're incredible. Did you ever, or have you ever thought, you know, this is my area, when I hear people just gaslighting what's going on, why don't you stand? Have you ever thought about that?
I mean, I was actually approached to stand against Andy Burnham at one point as Mayor of Manchester, but... You know,
Who by?
Well, I'm not telling you. I'm staying out of politics, you know.
I'd vote for you, Mags.
Oh, well, you know what? Who knows? My charity, we are really doing phenomenal work with a great... I've now got a brilliant team of people. And actually, Jeremy, the thing to say is that, you know, we are making such a difference. But the reason I can say what I say is because we're not funded by Andy Burnham as the Police and Crime Commissioner. And so, you know, I'm treading a tightrope. But who knows? I am building a fantastic team. But this particular subject impacts so many children's lives. I want change for the future.
I agree with you. I agree with you, but we're mates. Would you ever change your mind?
I might do. I wouldn't mind. I don't know. I was talking to somebody the other day. They were saying about the House of Lords. The Baroness of Bedlam would suit me.
Baroness of Bedlam. We love you, Maggie Oliver. Her charity and she do wonderful, wonderful work. Whenever she is, seriously support her. Mags, thank you so much. Almost 9 o'clock. News is next on Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. Just gone 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. Welcome back to Talk Breakfast. This is, of course, the home of common sense and the place where your views on the day's news are most welcome and joyously received. You can phone or send us a voice note, 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. The only rule this hour is you don't mention how West Ham are going to be playing Lincoln next season, otherwise I'll get a gob on and go home. Listen, the main news story of the day, obviously, Andy Burnham, Rayner now a sort of lame duck Prime Minister, and the self-styled King of the North has over the weekend discovered that politics is okay from the cheap seats, but when the light's shining on your chops, it's a different matter. Wes Streeting, and I actually agree with this, ridiculed last week for not getting the numbers, played an absolute blinder because he had a press conference on Saturday saying that if I was the leader and the Prime Minister, we would rejoin the EU. As Andy said in September. Let's listen to what Burnham said in September. Last September, have a listen.
Long term, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to say it. I want to rejoin. I hope in my lifetime I see this country rejoin the European Union. I'm absolutely clear about that. I believe in unions of all kinds. The union that is the UK, the European Union benefited this country. Trade unions, people prosper more when they're part of unions of countries or whatever. That's my belief, so I'm going to say it clearly.
Sorry, I did this at 8 o'clock. I'll do it again. It's a cheap line, but it's quite funny. He supports all union, but no mention of his support for the Soviet Union. Anyway, that was September. And then, lo and behold, when Streeting pulls the rabbit out of the bag that is the EU, suddenly realising that the constituency that he sort of strong-armed Simmons out of and he's going to set Makerfield, and I know all these people, I'm one of these people, 63% of them voted to leave the EU last time, and in the local elections that just took place, Reform, a pro-Brexit anti-European party, won all 12 seats. So when he was asked at the weekend, flip-flop Starmer-esque, have a listen, Andy.
Are you in favour of rejoining the European Union?
I've said in the long term there is a case for that, but I'm not advocating that in this by-election. In fact, what I am saying is focus now domestically. Britain has got to focus very much on the here and now and the issues that are affecting people.
Right, so, and I'm not having a go at Andy Burnham, but I want to try and lay this out because my next guest will be able to answer these questions. So, OK, let's not make it about Europe then, Andy. Let's make it about your call for change. What are you going to do then? Have a listen.
Straight question. Do you have confidence in Keir Starmer as Prime Minister?
I've always worked with him, and I do have confidence in him as a person, and actually
but him as Prime Minister. Do you have confidence in him as Prime Minister?
What he has done. I think the thing I would say is some of the good things the government has done has not come through in terms of people's awareness of the big changes, rail renationalisation.
And why is that, do you think?
I don't know. It's a hard thing, isn't it, being in politics, getting your message over. Perhaps it's the sense that there isn't a really clear forward story for Britain and where it's going, and that I think is what we've got to really kind of pull forward now.
Do you want Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, to come and campaign with you?
I want the support of any Labour colleague in the country if they want, if they're on board with.
Will he be inviting you up to help you campaign?
Let me put it this way. I mean, it's not a traditional by-election campaign. I'm saying different things to a degree in terms of what the government has been saying. If people are glad that I'm breaking this open and want to come and join the campaign, then but I'm not saying everybody must come and join the campaign because it is a different campaign.
So you're not standing on Keir Starmer's record and therefore it'd be kind of odd for him to come and campaign with you?
Well, I'm standing on a call for change, aren't I? I think we need to change Labour to some degree so we can change politics, change the country.
I'm not lying. Totally uninspiring, in my humble opinion. It's not a traditional by-election campaign. No, of course it's not, because you're using it as a stepping stone to go back to Westminster to overthrow your... In fact, you're standing for Labour and asking them to vote for you so that you get elected to go and overthrow the Labour leader. OK, fair enough. Politics is hard, he said, as you're finding out. So much to ask my next guest, a man who had the courage and the conviction to stand up against Keir Starmer and got thrown out and is now an independent. We love him. He's everywhere. Did I see you on Have I Got News for You, Carl Turner?
You did indeed.
You've me to thank for all of this, Katie.
Absolutely.
None of this. I have created a media monster in you, Turner.
It's all down to you, Jezza.
Good lad. I know that you're an honest guy, right? And I don't want to. This whole thing. Let's start with my analogy, and you can pick it to pieces. Last week, everybody said that Wes Streeting lacked the balls to stand up, didn't have the numbers, just stood at the side and bitched. He played an absolute bleeding blinder over the EU in terms of Andy Burnham, didn't he, Carl?
Absolutely, of course, and it was bound to happen. You know, it's going to be difficult, this campaign, but we mustn't get ahead of ourselves, Jeremy. I think Simon Danshuk, who's a former colleague of mine, was right when he said you can't take the electorate of Makerfield for granted. So Burnham's not even formally announced as the candidate yet, never mind the Member of Parliament, so we've got to go a bit slowly. In terms of Streeting, he's bound to say, isn't he, that he wants to rejoin the European Union at some point in the future. Why? Because the electorate in the Labour Party, members, most of them, not all of them by any stretch, but most of them have decided that leaving the European Union in the way that we did, i.e. with the deal that we got, was an unmitigated disaster. And I would suggest something like 70% or even more of the membership want to rejoin at some point. Now, that's similar to what Burnham said, of course, in September last year. But again, we shouldn't take the electorate for granted.
Membership, yes, Carl, but not Makerfield, where 63% voted to leave.
Well, I know, and 74% of my electorate in East Hull voted leave. But the point I'm making, Jeremy, is if Burnham or Streeting became leader and PM, they would need to go to the country on a referendum question. It's for the birds to suggest we can just get into the European Union because we feel a bit like it and we think it's gone a bit bad. We would have to have the referendum. And I'll tell you something now. I supported Remain. But I'll tell you something, if I was going to the country again on a referendum, on the New Deal, i.e. we go in as a new member, the arrangement with the EU would be entirely different to what we had before. So we'd probably have to end up with a single currency. I wouldn't like that very much, if I'm being honest with you. So the question of going back in on the same terms as we're in is just made up. It's just for the birds.
Let's talk about, and I love, you picked up Simon Danshuk because I love this point, and I just want to say it to you, an MP, right? So he hasn't been selected yet, and yet they are lining up. Over the weekend, a woman who would know, by the way, I think she's terrified, a woman who would know that her constituents and the people in that area are leavers, Lisa Nandy, said, and I quote, "I'll be canvassing with Andy," wait for it. This morning, Calamity Lammy, who inspires everybody to believe that they can run Great Britain, he said, of course. Now, I'll be up there campaigning. So I put this to you as an ex-Labour MP. I don't know what happened to cabinet responsibility. Collect it. You've got two cabinet ministers going to Manchester, already admitting they're going to campaign for a man who hasn't been selected, who, if he is, wants to get their boss sacked.
Well, exactly. Absolutely. That's how daft it is, really.
Yeah.
Look, we've got a situation now, Jeremy, whereby Reform fought the last local set of elections on the basis of vote reform, get Starmer out. We've now got a candidate, if in fact he's selected as the candidate, Burnham won't be saying it because he's not daft. But the people will be thinking, if I vote for candidate Andy Burnham, I'm going to get Starmer out. And they're right about that, because it's inevitable now that there's a contest against the Prime Minister as leader. Why? Because Wes Streeting announced it yesterday or the day before at the Progress conference. He's going to be standing. That means if Burnham's not elected as the MP, some other candidate from the left or the soft left in the Parliamentary Labour Party will stand against Streeting. Inevitable that there's a contest. Now, it's a matter for the PM if he wants to bow out gracefully. I suspect not. and be a candidate himself. I think he'll probably stick in. Why? Because I don't think he's ever really cared, if I'm honest, about the Labour Party and trade union movement. Somebody said to him in 2015, do you fancy being an MP? He said, yeah, if you don't mind. What do you think I'd like to do? He joined the Labour Party, I think 6 months before he became the candidate in that general election, and then eventually the leader of the party. Now, do I knock that? No. I supported him at the time. I supported him as the candidate. He was a pal of mine. But actually, what we've seen in terms of his management of the party has been shocking. And that's what the people can see. You, Ted, I'm doing this, then I'm not doing it. Winter fuel allowance, and then they get it back. Inheritance tax with farmers. What on earth were we thinking of? I can hardly believe we were doing these stupid things, but we were doing them. Why? Because his leadership was appalling. Jury trials. This is the man in 1997 who campaigned to scrap single judge trials in Northern Ireland, but now wants them for in England and Wales.
Absolutely.
I mean, good heavens above. You couldn't get any worse.
But my point to jump is, and I think he knows the game's up, but my point is to bring it back to Burnham. In that third clip, when, I mean, all these words, they come from politicians the whole term. You're one of the fewest that speaks honesty. Call for change. Everybody's just texting me going, he's just gaslighting. He's no bloody different. He's too terrified to say what he thinks about the EU because there's so many people in the Labour tent now. He's too terrified in that constituency. And I think the reality is, and this is not a pro-reform thing. I mean, reform just have to stick to their message because, as you just said, a vote for Labour is Starmer out. And you know what I think will happen, don't you? I used to think Starmer would either call a general election or sack them all. Do you know what I think he's going to do, Carl?
Go on.
I think he's going to pitch up there because he knows he's absolutely hated, and that'll wind them all up and they won't vote for Burnham. I think we have a sitting Prime Minister who secretly wants reform to win that election.
Well, I doubt that's true, to be fair, because, you know, when you're the leader of the Labour Party, you want Labour candidates to win. I think Keir Starmer's a lot of things, but I don't think he'd even contemplate expecting or preparing for an alternative candidate to win. Honestly, I don't think that's what he's about. But what I do say about Keir is he's got to accept and acknowledge that if he supports Burnham in this contest by physically turning up, it takes vote against him. It loses Labour votes. Why? Because his vitriol on the doorstep. He's toxic. They can't stomach him. Honestly.
Why do you think the Labour Party? I know we're a certain area and you're a certain area, but why do you think Burnham is perceived? And I'm just being honest, because again, like I said to you, when the Tories were toxic and you guys got in, I'm a patriot. I wanted it to work. I'm sick and tired of Starmer. I'd like somebody, I don't have to support them, to do a good job. I was literally gobsmacked, Carl, hand on heart, by the lack of conviction, the lack of authority, and frankly, that interview, I thought he was really, really poor. And I'm not just saying that. I'd say to you, wow, he's got something on Starmer. I thought it was much of the same. I'm being honest.
Well, look, I mean, I didn't see the interview, but I know Andy Burnham, and I think he's fairly impressive. And I think the difference is this, look. Whether we like it or you like it rather or not, or your viewers and listeners like it or not, Burnham is the most popular politician in British politics. Reason partly, Jeremy, that's what the polling says. Reason partly is because he's not been in the cabinet for the last 2 years.
That's true.
If he had been in the cabinet for the last 2 years, his popularity would have been diminished in the same way that everybody else's popularity in the cabinet has been diminished. But that's wouldn't be Burnham's fault or Rayner's fault or Streeting's fault. That'd be the leadership of the Labour Party's fault. Up in and downhill, up, downhill, turn round, shake it all about. We've never known where we've been. If I was still reading the Parliamentary Labour Party briefs, which I stopped reading in 2010, thank goodness, I'd be spinning round in circles. They were briefing that I'd gone mad. I'd actually be very ill.
I couldn't agree more. I find it, I'm sorry, I know you say it's impressive, but I don't agree. And I'll tell you the other thing. I'll tell you it was really interesting. Have you noticed the silence from your lady, our Ange? Because here's the thing. This is absolutely true. If the reform vote that showed itself with the Brexit vote, if the reform vote that categorically showed itself in the local elections does for Andy Burnham what many think it will do, she said nothing. She'll fall in behind him, or she will be the candidate on the left who will come from nowhere and take on Streeting. And of course, Miliband is still in the equation, frightening as that is. I'm just amazed. I'm being completely honest. I'm not amazed he's gone for the seat, because that's politics and it's a dirty business. I keep saying about the guy that's the MP. He was sacked, wasn't he? So he's got a grudge. But I do think that one thing, whatever your politics about the British people nowadays, Carl, is they've decided that their voice can be heard. They like, I think, to think that they're going to be treated fairly, and a lot in this country think they're not being treated fairly for all sorts of reasons, not just illegal immigration, not just all sorts of reasons. And I think the people of Makerfield are not going to fall for something that they see as you're just using us. Now, they might come out in their droves and prove that Burnham is the most popular person ever, right, in Labour, and he can be anointed. If he gets to Westminster, the next debate's going to be, hold on a second, and I'll put this to you. You're now Prime Minister, and you've actively said you want to rejoin the EU. That wasn't in your manifesto. There needs to be a general election, right?
Yeah, listen, what I would be advising Burnham, and I've spoken to him recently and texted him a couple of times over the last few days.
Did he ignore you as you're an independent?
No, he comes back to me, does Andy, and we have a conversation. You know, we agree on a lot of things, me and Burnham. But look, what I would be saying to Andy is the first thing we need to be is honest, right?
Yeah.
When people in East Hull and Makerfield voted in Makerfield at 63 or 64%, in East Hull 74%, that wasn't because necessarily that they didn't like the relationship that the country had with the EU. It's because they've been let down for decades. We had 18 years of a Tory government, right? We then had, 13 years of a Labour government. We've now into we then had the coalition government for 40. They've had the same stuff for years by all of the parties. Deindustrialisation, jobs not safe, insecurity, earning not enough money, not being able to pay bills. That's not the EU's fault, and it's not Brexit's fault. So if we're going to this saying, listen, the answer to your prayers is rejoining the EU, we'll be lying again. And the electorate can see that we're lying again. We've got to have an industrial strategy in this country. We've got to get people grafting. We've got to get people off benefits into work. We've got to start paying down debt, but investing in the country. That's the stuff that changes lives. And it will, if we are determined to do it. So that's what we need to do. And Burnham needs to be honest about that. Streeting needs to be honest about that. And I think his parting gesture to the country as he leaves Downing Street, as he inevitably will, is admit that by the Prime Minister.
Are you wanting Andy Burnham to be the next leader of the Labour Party? And would that convince you or make you believe you could come back into the fold?
I deal with the world as it is, and Burnham's not an MP at the minute, so if I was to make a choice, but I can't because I'm suspended, I can't support any of them, my choice would be Rayner. People sort of choke at that, but actually, she was an impressive minister, Angela Rayner. Incredibly
Didn't build many houses, though, did she?
She didn't, but she was hardworking, she was determined. She spoke to the truth to power. The reason she was briefed and smeared and leaked against is because she told Starmer when she thought he was going wrong. That's the type of person I'd support. Would I support West Streeting? I think he's a brilliant communicator, actually. I think he's impressive in many respects.
I think he's playing for one of the big jobs. I know he thinks he can't. You know, you said you texted Burnham. Have you texted Rayner as well?
I speak to Angela Rayner regularly, Jeremy.
Why did she turn down the health secretary's job?
Well, I don't know whether she did. I've not asked her the question, but I suspect she said no, thank you very much, because she didn't want to be used by number 10 Downing Street, Starmer and his mates, and most of them are men apparently, to come and do a job to make it look to the country like she's supporting the PM, when in fact, the reality is everybody knows that the Prime Minister's tenure in number 10 Downing Street is coming to an end anytime soon. Why would she go back in for 15 minutes when we're going to have a new leader in the next, what, 6, 12 weeks?
I love you, man. Listen, I haven't spoken to the bosses yet, so bear with me, but I want to do this show live from Makerfield on the morning after the election. Will you join us? How far is it from East Hull?
You can get to Makerfield, no bother at all, Jeremy.
On train, I'm not paying for taxi, all right, lad. Regards to the wife, you're a top man. We love having you on. Carl Turner, independent MP for Hull East. Good man. He's got a vape in his right hand there. That's what he and Angie have, right? They go and sit on a dinghy and have a vape. Good lad. 0344 499 1000. Rob, where have you been? Rob, my mate, who I'll see later, is a Newcastle fan, so we haven't spoken since yesterday's game because I'm embarrassed by the fact that West Ham was rubbish, and then he said the wrong word. He said he's off his bits. Lovely. Right, 9:23, if you want to be on 0344 499 1000. Jay on Maggie Oliver, good morning.
Cheers up. The lady you've just had on, fantastically spoken, well spoken, used to know Andy Burnham. If she ended up with reform or restore, that woman would get serious votes. She really would.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:26. Julia here from 10, Ian Collins from 1, and Kev O'Sullivan on Drive this afternoon. That's how you line up on Monday the 18th of May on Talk's Home of Common Sense. Joe says, hi Jez, Carl Turner for PM, he knows what he's talking about, he can string a sentence together and he doesn't stutter. That's interesting because Rob in Newcastle says he's off his bits. Carl for PM, says Tony. This will be riling him big time. Chrissy from Wales. Well, it says Chris from Wales, but then what's it is Chrissy. We voted to get out of the EU. Andy Burnham, Wes and Starmer, they're all playing the people. I reckon they're all working together to get what they want. Now we're getting really conspiratorial, aren't we? Brian Goodwin, I love Carl. He tells it like it is. Burnham is just the same as Starmer with sticky on eyebrows. Somebody sent me a message earlier saying he looks like Mikel Arteta. Can't trust him. Michael Wilkinson, why do politicians on Labour always say, let me be clear, or I want to be perfectly clear, when they are the complete and utter opposite of clear? In my life, we've never had a government as poor as them, and never has anything a government has said been less clear. Morning, Jez. The Tories should stand aside, and so should Restore. Rupert Lowe should put his loathing of Nigel Farage aside and put his country as first. Jeff, nobody wants Burnham up north. Like nobody wants Starmer up north. Both don't demonstrate what we people up north want. Lovely. Good morning, Jezza. I was just getting ready earlier. Yes, I'm part of the Alarm Clock Brit. When you had Peter on, you played Starmer's Friday message. It was Peter Blacksley. He sent out a message saying, about the Unite the Kingdom march. Lots of police, very violent. We're very worried. Behave yourselves. Nothing about the Palestinian march. Calling everyone far right. I must commend the people who made the short film. Must have cost a fortune, but it's fine for the far right working class people to pay for the film slagging us off. I think that makes sense. Pete Johnson. So Lammy's going up north to campaign for Burnham. I suppose that he'll go on all expenses paid first-class train fare, and the taxpayer will pay for it. Yeah, that's it. Burnham. How is he managing to fit in all this canvassing while undertaking his full time as a mayor? Are we sure that Lammy knows which way the north is? He'll probably end up in Southampton. He's such an... Good. Talk of returning to the EU. Is that constitutionally acceptable without a referendum? They need a referendum to leave. I think it's very true. Finally, Ian from Merseyside. How are you, son? Would it now be suitable that all MPs submit an accredited CV publicly before any election so that we can see who has experience in other industries, candidates who might have real-life experiences such as the public, so we can identify those who have gone straight into politics and are basically rubbish. 9:30, if you want to get balance on anything, you go to Trevor Kavanagh. That after Steve. Morning, Stevie.
Morning, Jezza. It's Steve from Bassett Law. Just been listening to the songs that people keep singing about Starmer. And they got me thinking, if Starmer worked in finance, he'd be a banker. And if he was a mouth sore, he'd be a canker. What's his favourite HTV? Just for the tax take, I'm guessing it might be a petrol tanker. His favourite butter to spread on his toast? I'm going with Anchor. The new rival for his job is Andy. He's a mank. Huh? If Starmer played rugby, his position would be flanker. And his position on the EU is rejoin. Thanks. Merci. Danke. Starmer's view on Brexit is one of disdain and rancour. Cheers.
Absolutely brilliant. Love it. Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor of The Sun. A very good morning. I love that voice note, didn't you, my friend?
He missed out the double one, didn't he?
Yeah, brilliant. Trev, in your experience, all the stuff that sort of really got them going this morning, I know you've seen again and again. So I'm just going to throw it out as I have done all morning. Last week, Wes Streeting was pilloried as having no cojones and not having numbers and laughed at. Putting the EU front and centre of this future leadership debate was politically brilliant, wasn't it? Because Andy Burnham is now in massive trouble already, isn't he?
I think tactically it was brilliant. Strategically, I think it was disastrous. You've got the situation in Macclesfield, which is that Andy Burnham is sort of faintly Remain, but not idealistically keen. And Wes Streeting, I'm not sure where he quite stands, actually, despite his machinations here. But they are, yes, using Brexit or Remain or going back in as a lever to sort of embarrass the other. So Burnham is now standing in or will be standing in a constituency which was 65% pro-Brexit. And if he were to say, I want to get back in, he might risk what is possibly going to happen anyway, which is that he's going to be defeated by reform.
But even if he now says, I don't want to, have you not seen... So I won't bore you now, but we played an interview from September where he went, absolutely, we need to back in the unions. Oh, I love unions, trade unions. He didn't mention the Soviet Union. And then at the weekend, when asked, he said, it's not about that, it's about local issues. I know that you're like me in that you have a great belief in the British public and how they feel very treated unfairly at the moment. They'll see through this. This is an open goal, isn't it, for reform?
Well, absolutely. And I think that this return to the Remain argument is a disaster for Labour, both now in the medium term and at the next general election. They won't have the courage to have another referendum, which is the only democratic way forward, and in which case I think they would risk losing anyway, despite the apparent support now for going back in. I think that would evaporate as soon as the arguments were laid out. So they're going to try and wrap it up in the next general election so nobody really will notice. They'll be thinking about their hip pocket nerve and all the rest of it. But it's not going to work. Either way, it's going to be a disaster for them because it's a mess. Nobody really knows what the arguments are anymore. What we have is the people who voted for Brexit who are still voting for Brexit. That's the point of it. And they're trying to push against the tide. And it's just an unscrupulous way of trying to gather a few votes by these two leadership candidates.
Let's look at the bigger picture as well. Politics is a dirty business. A few analogies for you. So Reform in the Gorton and Denton by-election said a vote for Reform is a vote to get Starmer out. In essence, the candidate, if we're being honest, in Makerfield, who's trampling on the people's heads, his campaign slogan should be a vote for Labour is to get Starmer out. So
Absolutely.
I mean, that's ludicrous, isn't it?
Well, the whole thing is a total shambles. I can't imagine there's ever been quite such a ratbag bunch of politicians scrambling for office here at the expense of the country. Nobody's in favour of a continuation of Keir Starmer. Nobody in the Labour Party apparently wants Wes Streeting at the moment. And lots of people don't really want Burnham because he's already failed twice to win the Labour leadership. And there's no indication in his performance as Mayor of Manchester that he is the man to lead this nation. I was nodding along to almost everything that Carl Turner was saying earlier. And then he mentioned Angela Rayner and everything went out of the window. This is a state of play at the moment in the Labour Party.
Yeah. In terms of the whole campaign, I know you think I'd take it very seriously, but we have an incumbent Labour Prime Minister who's hoping for a Reform victory in Makerfield, Trev. That's how weird and ridiculous it is.
It's the drowning man clutching at two lead weights, isn't it? I mean, look, he is doomed. He knows he's doomed.
Yeah.
And if he isn't doomed now, he will be at the next general election if he limps along that far. But the thing that haunts me all the time, and I'm sure it does most of your listeners too, Jeremy, and yourself, is that we have 3 more years of this. Yeah. I mean, the amount of damage that this government has already inflicted pales by comparison with what may lie ahead over the coming 3 years as it is buffeted by all of these divisions within its ranks, let alone what's happening in the outside world, and let alone what's happening in the European Union that they want to rejoin.
Couldn't agree more. I'll tell you what, a couple of other things before I let you go. I mean, God, I don't know what's happened to collective cabinet responsibility over the weekend. Lisa Nandy, the culture secretary, who, by the way, knows absolutely that the Leave vote will probably cost them that seat because she's in Wigan, 10 miles down the road. She said, I'm campaigning for Burnham. This morning, Calamity Lammy. God, this is your death knell, isn't it? He said, of course I'll go to Manchester if he can find his way there and campaign. Just as an ex-political editor of The Sun, so innocuous, wrong word, so lacking in any authority now is Starmer that 2 of his cabinet ministers are actively saying we're going to campaign for a man who hasn't been selected and whose only desire is to get rid of their boss.
And meanwhile, who's running the country?
Yeah.
I mean, who's dealing with the problems that are going to face us as
Absolutely.
the money markets turn against us? Who's going to deal with our defence requirement? Who's going to actually have the nerve to grasp the nettle of welfare reform? Certainly not Labour, certainly not Starmer. And I mean, look, both of the 2 candidates who seem to be running at the moment, Streeting and Burnham, have no idea what they're going to do. And the big fear in my mind is that they're going to leave the ground vacant in the end as they too fall onto the ground, scrambling to win votes. And Ed Miliband sidles through on the side. I mean, that is the horror.
Or Rayner. Well, who was apparently offered the health secretary's job over the weekend and said no, who's going to publicly say I support Burnham, and if he loses the seat, he's going to rise like the phoenix, isn't she?
And who personally, I am sure, does not think that she's got what it takes to lead a nation through the difficult times lying ahead and here in front of us right now as Prime Minister. I don't think she's got it, and I don't think she thinks she's got it. I think Ed Miliband is the one who's pulling the strings behind everybody's back. He wants to be Chancellor in a government, or if not that, Prime Minister, but he probably doesn't expect to be Prime Minister. But it's Ed Miliband you have to watch out for here.
Few quick questions. Does Burnham, well, he obviously is going to get selected. Does he win this constituency Makerfield? How do you see it going?
I would predict, frankly, Jeremy, that he's going to lose. Really? I think that the people of Makerfield may well be stalwart Labour, but Labour isn't stalwart Labour itself now. And I think that they don't want to be taken advantage of by a Chancellor like Burnham and being dumped by an MP who is already the centre of a scandal over his scurrilous attempts to rubbish a respected journalist on the Sunday Times. And they can see all this. I mean, the local voters are not fools. They will be able to assess all of this and decide they're not going to be made use of.
So you think that Reform will win that? And who do you think will come through on the rails, or who do you think will be... I mean, I can't even bring myself to say the next Prime Minister, because I don't believe that's right. I've said it all along, there should be a general election. I don't think it's proper and correct, but there you go. Who do you think Miliband, do you?
Well, I think, frankly, Jeremy, that you're right. There should and indeed must be a general election, but you have a government which is going nowhere. It's got a large majority. It knows it's going to lose that majority. That majority will become unemployed. Those MPs and cabinet ministers who are now getting a decent crust as our elected representatives are going to find themselves destitute because nobody's going to employ them once they're out of office.
Really interesting, mate. It's great to have you on. We're going to watch it with interest in the next few weeks. They think June the 18th will keep you informed. Thank you so much indeed. The legend is Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor of The Sun. Thank you. Ahead of 10, Andrew Loney. That new book entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York is out in paperback with some extra extracts, some shocking extracts, actually. I sat down with him. We'll give you that after this break. Bill Bell. Ding dong. Streeting's brilliance was born out of pure desperation, right? Somebody else. Has Carl Turner deflected to reform with all those reform policies he's just read off? Morning Jez says, I don't know. A new broom sleeps clean. Can get rid of the lot of them. Our country cannot take any more of this rubbish. General election now. 0344 499 1000. Only number you need. You can leave your voice note. We're on for 20 more minutes. Where's it gone this morning? You can text as well. 87222. Do please start your message with the word talk. Morning, Matt.
Hi, Jezza. Matt in Warrington. When Boris was the mayor of London and he went to become an MP again before he became Prime Minister, didn't he have to give up the role of mayor before he went for it? I'm sure he did. So why hasn't Burnham been made to give up his role of mayor of Manchester?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. So on the way, I sat down with Andrew Loney, the man who wrote entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. I think it was Monday afternoon or Tuesday. New paperback version and some shocking... I can't even bring myself. Enjoy this. We'll read some more text in just a tick. This is me and Andrew Loney. Andrew Loney, good morning. So good to have you back on Talk Breakfast. How are things, my friend?
Busy, as you can imagine, since the book's about to come out.
Well, listen, I just for everybody listening, entitled, of course, The Rise and Fall of the House of York, a massive bestseller. Back with a new version, May 21st, and it says on the outside, Andrew, which is why I wanted you on, sensational new material. You know what I'm like as a fervent royalist. What is sensational? Tell me more, my friend.
Well, it brings the story up to the arrest in February. It adds some more material on Andrew's activities as a trade envoy and Sarah Ferguson's operations with her charities, a bit more on the daughters, which people wanted. And I suppose the two stories that seem to have been picked up, one is that how Andrew treats animals, which people seem more concerned about than how he treats young women, and about the relationship between P. Diddy, the rapper, and Sarah Ferguson.
Oh my God! I'm not being against the animal thing. We'll talk about it. But in the midst of all the madness in the last couple of weeks, I read this story, and I know that you were coming on. P. Diddy and Sarah Ferguson. That's probably the most stomach-churning thought I've ever had.
Well, I mean, they were good friends. In fact, since the story broke, that relationship has been traced back slightly earlier than I realised. She loves rap music. She used to get rappers to perform at her children's birthday parties. And so it didn't really surprise me. She's kind of drawn to bad boys, and he's the classic bad boy.
Her reputation for picking certain men is no higher when you hear these news stories. Can I circle back to the arrest? I remember it distinctly. I remember Julia being on air and suddenly, you know, the farm in Norfolk had been surrounded by police, and I don't think anybody can still forget the photograph of him in the back of the car when he was released that night. The fear, quite rightly, I have to say, in his eyes, as if he'd been finally caught. Where are we at with that? We haven't really heard anything since the arrest. I mean, from what you've gathered, is it an ongoing process? Is it ebbing away? Is it getting stronger by the minute? What do you know?
Well, I don't know where they are. I mean, I've certainly written to law enforcement offering material I have. I had no response. I'm assuming the investigations are going on. I'm a little cynical about whether anything will happen. I just can't see the royal family allowing this story to appear, to happen, and to have him in court testifying. So something is going to happen. And I think this has been kicked into the long grass, that they're going to say it's a very complex case. It's going to take a long time, a lot of people to find. And we're going to be in a new reign before anything happens.
I mean, I'm so with you, Andrew, because, I mean, we all think back to the Burrell case and the Queen intervened at the last minute, the story that he'd taken stuff, that mementos, artefacts from the late Diana, Princess of Wales, and just before it came to court, because, of course, at that point, the Queen is in charge of all the courts and can't be called as a witness, she said, no, we were aware of this and it was dropped. Surely, we all know this legally. If it ever got to court or near court, Andrew would just say, I told my brother and I told the late Queen. And the whole thing falls down on its backside, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the danger, absolutely. And I think, you know, they probably will bring charges against Mandelson. They'll argue that he was a public servant, he was being paid. But I suspect they'll make a distinction with Andrew as a trade envoy and say that he did this just for expenses.
It's extraordinary it's extraordinary the dirt though and the headlines that have been attached to him, and I always try and bring it back to the King. Since we spoke recently, the King's been to America. I thought one of the finest examples of soft diplomacy for a long time, and I thought it did the monarchy good. But there was still, of course, the awkwardness there of not meeting the Epstein victims, and he has been accused of knowing more than he's let on and financing his brother. And as long as that man is on his farm, on his land, he's forever going to be tainted, isn't he, Charles?
Yes, I think Charles does need to come clean about what the family knew. I mean, I think there is a suspicion that Andrew's been protected for many years. I mean, it's very clear what he was doing. I mean, there were complaints made to the palace. There were, I mean, stories appearing in the press going back 15 years. I mean, even when my book came out in August, nothing happened. So, I mean, you know, the Salman Turk case in 2022, £1.3 million unexplained in New York finances, the 2010 filming of Sarah Ferguson sending access to Andrew for £500,000. I mean, nothing seems to have been done at any of these stages. So it's always too little too late. And they're dragged screaming and kicking into doing anything.
Do you know
it would be very easy.
Sorry, pal. Do you know any more about her since also we last spoke, since this book, the first book came out, and we've got the new one, as I say, 21st of May, new paperbacks, some sensational new material. She was spotted, wasn't she, in some alpine ski resort where she'd been flitting around. How is she surviving? She must have... Does she have info on people? Because she seems to be living the life of Riley.
Well, it is a great mystery who is paying for this accommodation, or who's putting her up, and how she's surviving and what's going to happen. You know, she can't keep running. She's got to emerge to face the music at some point. There have been rumours that she was close to getting some multi-million-pound deal to tell her story. But I think, her priority should be telling the story to law enforcement and to the Senate and House committees. I mean, she's a material witness. And I think there's a good case to bring charges against her, given company law and charities law and various other things.
Do you believe the irony could be, because he is or was an ex-prince, son of the Queen, that it could be kicked into the long grass for him for reasons that none of us would agree with, and you think about the victims, which is what this should be about, but actually she might end up being prosecuted and not him?
I think that's a certain possibility. And I mean, she's clearly playing hardball at the moment. She knows a lot of the secrets, and I suspect she's trying to leverage that to perhaps get a pension to be taken care of. I mean, she's kind of hinted all the way through over the last 30 years that she might spill the beans, and she's done little drib drabs of things just to keep them on their toes. But there is a possibility that both of them could be summoned to the States, not to give evidence, but actually because the crimes, well, certainly for Andrew, the crimes were conducted on American territory, that there may be a case, even as a British citizen, to be charged there.
It's an unbelievable
and the Americans
story.
may be more robust.
Andrew, you mentioned at the beginning the daughters, and I've watched from afar as Beatrice and Eugenie, their marriages are suddenly in the spotlight, their living accommodations and sort of arrangements have been brought into the spotlight, they're pictured. And some people have said, oh, it's not fair. But I remember you telling me, schooling me in the fact that I remember saying to you, it's not really their fault. Their mother took them when they were 6 and 8. And you went, Jeremy, they were 19 and 20. These girls are complicit as well. Is there not financial proof that they've benefited from this sleazy relationship?
Well, certainly in the paperback, I have evidence of them, using their titles to make money in the Middle East. I mean, there have been gifts that haven't been declared from, for example, a Turkish billionaire to Eugenie. There are big concerns about the anti-slavery collective that Eugenie runs. I mean, it's raised large sums of money, but it hasn't spent anything. I think £90,000 out of £650,000 raised, and yet salaries of close to £200,000. So there's a little bit of cynicism about how they've been laundering their reputations through charity work. I mean, I think their best hope is to give up their titles, to retire from public life, and to concentrate on their marriages and their careers. But I think the problem for them is their careers are dependent on their royal titles. And so that's why I think they'll be very reluctant to surrender those. I think we also need to look at their accommodation in Kensington Palace and St James's Palace. They're not working royals, and there's no reason why they should have subsidised accommodation there.
It's really interesting for me that this family is so tainted, whether it's fraudulent money or the relationship with Epstein or whatever it is, and it's so sleazy. I'm a royalist, I know you are, that the House of York undoubtedly has brought shame, and it's going to be, not fascinating is the wrong word, I don't know whether the King can or will do much. When the King is no longer the King, I think William will be far more strident in his approach. But there's no doubt, the Queen's second son might be facing charges. His wife could go to jail. The kids could be implicated. And that just looks so bad on the monarchy as a whole, doesn't it? It just drags the monarchy down. It demands more transparency. And the King, 70 years to wait for the job that he was born to do, now faces that at him all the time, despite his efforts recently, I suspect.
Yeah, that's why it's so surprising that they aren't trying to address this. I mean, whenever they go out, members of the royal family are asked, what did you know and when did you know it? And they need to answer that question. And I suspect, the hard-working royals, the Princess Anne's and Prince Edward's, must feel pretty let down by this activity and the reluctance to address it. I think, we've discussed this. Charles needs to basically bite the bullet, take the rap for this, and leave the stables clean for when William takes the throne.
Completely agree with you. Andrew, you said something at the beginning of the interview which is shocking, and you're right as well. There's all this sensational new material. There's a terrible story in this about the way he treats animals. Is there? Tell me more.
Yes, I mean, I think this is the story about his dog Bendrix, a black Labrador, and he's out shooting at one of his normal shooting weekends, and he kicks the dog, and no one seems to reprimand him. Except a fellow guest. And that evening, Prince Philip comes up to him and says, thank you, that needed to be said. Andrew needs a good scolding. And the question is, why haven't the royal family been giving Andrew a good scolding all these years? How have they let him get away with this behaviour? And it's, you know, it is extraordinary.
I have my own theory because of what my old man did, but I would never say it on air because I'd probably be sued. I think I know why the Queen treated him so favourably and let him get away with it, but you're absolutely right. His behaviour to animals, his behaviour to people, just his contempt. And actually, you can be really successful and really well off and you can be royal and all those things, but you also need to be a decent human being. And what runs through this story is yeah, appalling judgment, but just such an entitled, arrogant, rude, demonstratively unnice person. Do you know what I mean? Just not a nice man.
No, I mean, he has this thing where he sort of humiliates people who can't answer back. So young girls of 18, he kind of makes sexual advances to. You know, the stories with an air hostess, he basically made a sexual advance to, which she couldn't respond. And you're absolutely right, you know, making people bow lower and lower when he comes across them at Sunninghill. He's just abused his power, and no one has really called him out until now.
Very narcissistic, Andrew.
Well, I think they both are, and I think this is, you know, I think this is one of their problems. But there's also been no structure and in their lives. I mean, you know, there were so many moments when they could have been the bright young things. They could have been the poster kids of the royal family, and the fact that they've been allowed to do this grifting for the last 40 years with no sort of penalties or holdback is extraordinary. And so it shows that the system itself is pretty corrupt.
I have such admiration for you to people who might not have spoken or listened to Andrew before. The grief that you had to put the first book together, the threats that you accepted and the bravery you showed says so much. It was a bestseller. New paperback version out 21st of May, The Rise and Fall of the House of York. And you won't let this go, will you, good man? You're like a dog with a bone, aren't you?
I am. I'm very persistent. So there is a new book coming called Untitled, which takes the story even further and opens it up. Other members of the royal family were also involved with Epstein, but that's for another day.
When's that coming out? When's that coming out? Untitled.
Well, that takes a few years, but I'm picking up a lot of information now. The story is much, much bigger than I think people realise.
I was reading a story the other day that actually Camilla, the Queen, is very fervent in her desire to push the Yorks out and is in cahoots with William, forcing Charles to take a stronger stance. That will be very interesting. The royal family in its entirety, I mean, recently at that American trip, I thought he did a good job. I thought his humour and his ability to do soft diplomacy and to have Trump in the palm of his hand was fantastic. But like you, I worry about the stain on the royal family, what the Yorks have done, and especially those two odious human beings over in America. That marriage will end soon, by the way. £1 million on that, I tell you. And all of that whilst the King's trying to do his thing and he's battling ill health. I think the interesting point, Andrew, will be when William takes over, because I think he will strip anybody who is not in the game. I think he will be very strong on his brother, and I think he'll be even stronger on his uncle and aunt, to be fair. I really do.
I agree. I think, you know, we now need a monarchy fit for the 21st century, and we haven't really had it. I mean, Charles had an opportunity to do that and for various reasons hasn't. But I hope and believe that William will.
Listen, we can't wait for the new paperback version, Pete's. Andrew Loney, entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, and a new one in how long, Andrew? When's the next one going to come out?
Well, they take about 4 years, so I look forward to talking to you in 4 years' time.
Well, hopefully we'll speak before then, but thank you so much indeed for coming on Talk Breakfast. Go and get this book, ladies and gentlemen. Paperback version of entitled The Rise and Fall. The only man brave enough to tell the world exactly the truth about the Duke, or the ex-Duke of York, and his wife, who have grifted for years and years. Good man, Andrew. Thank you very much indeed. This is Talk Breakfast.
Thanks a lot.
Can I just point out, right, that was a pre-recording, as I said. Tony, didn't Jezza have a white shirt on earlier? Am I going mad? It's pink now. It was a recording. Thank you very much, Steve, for listening for breakfast. Back tomorrow morning at 6. Julia on the way. More about Burnham. More about Burnham. It's all going on. 0344 499 1000. Your text messages as ever on Talk throughout the day. 87222. Julia at 10, Ian at 1, and Kev at 4. Have a great day. Ta-ra!
welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McKay.
I don't really know Meghan Markle.